Welcome to Flat Earth Debate, Uncut and After Show. I'm your host Nathan Oakley, and if you are new to this channel, or you've not done so already, then be sure to subscribe, hit the bell notification icon and join button if you'd like to become a Nathan Oakley 1980 channel member and keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. If you would like to support the channel, there is a super chat that runs alongside each of these shows while they premiere, and there's also a PayPal, Patreon, crypto and thanks button in the info box below the video. Speaking of patrons, I'm going to do a quick shout out to all of you who do support me on Patreon. So a massive shout out of thanks and appreciation to Rod, Kimberly Schmidt, Twad Wazzle, Jason Hornsby, Christoph Fournier, John Travolta, JMels24, Unamento, M Iron26, Endless, Flat Earth Sage, Goldie McKiernan, Retro Bill, More Books, Cannabear, Fibre Oats, Bogey, Michael Kahn, John Kays, Patrick Gunnels, Banter, Will Brax, Mel B Styles, Troy Shuker, Harry Blade, Mobile Mac 777, Neo the One, Rob W, Open Minded, Reese Pound, Dal West Watson, Maria Neelands, Unbelievable Productions, Blue Ridge Ranger, The Real Gabster, Abraham Mohammed, Skeptic 936, Life is Short, Texas Mike, David Wayne Foster, and Dank. So another massive thank you to all of you for supporting me on Patreon. Now, what I normally do at this point is hand over to my Discord and G Plus panels, but I'm actually going to do a bit of e-begging as I've actually got no choice in the matter at the moment because I've just spent an absolute ton on domestic white goods, which isn't the kind of thing you can really e-beg for, so I haven't. I've just bought them, and subsequently when a piece of equipment has gone down, which I would typically repair, I'm left in a position where I'm not going to repair it, I'm going to replace it, hopefully with the help of people supporting me as they have done many times in the past. Now, people who can remember long enough ago will probably recall that I've actually asked for funds to repair these amps in the past. So these amps have actually gone back probably a dozen times between the four of them, one of which has now been sold. I'm left with three, plus a couple of others that have got multi-channels, one of which is also broken. Anyway, aside from that, the main one, which is this actual top one in this picture here, has started to die with the exact same fault that it's had half a dozen times before, and each time it goes in for repair, because of the custom output FETs that it uses, it costs an absolute ton to fix. So it costs between £500 and £800 each time there's a repair done on it. So it costs a small fortune to get the things done, and I've asked multiple times in the past to have them repaired, and they have been. But they just don't stay working for very long, which is obviously not good enough to keep the show running without any hiccups and without me suddenly losing sound as I did yesterday to the entire show, which isn't really acceptable. So as much as I'm actually quite heartbroken I'm going to be letting them go, they're very, very good hi-fi amps, and back in the day I was a hi-fi enthusiast and I used to work for the company that sold these amps. So they've got a certain amount of sentimental attachment to them, and I like them and would love to repair them indefinitely. However, they've come to their end in terms of their usefulness for me running this show, and they're going to need to be replaced. So rather than chucking another £500 at each of them to get them fixed, I'm going to ask for the exact same money that I would have used to repair them to replace them. So I'm just going to replace them with some cheap and cheerful studio amps. I've already bought second-hand, admittedly, an amp that powers my subwoofer, that I can use the exact same amp, and yes, it's not anywhere near as good in terms of quality, but it will allow me to actually hear the show rather than not hear the show, and it'll hopefully come with a warranty. So I want to directly replace 3 amps with 3 cheap amps, basically. So once I achieve about £500, I'll buy one of them, and that will at least give me 2 speakers, because I'm currently running on one, which isn't the greatest, but it cobbles the show along as it stands. But yeah, hopefully I can get to £500 relatively quickly, because I do actually need to get a replacement in as quickly as possible so I can just continue using the show as it normally runs, or how it normally functions. So hopefully I can get to that goal pretty quickly, and then ultimately I'd like to just replace all of the old amps that have been bought back in maybe, I think I bought them in 2010, so they're, 13 years old now, so they're obviously a bit long in the tooth. In spite of the fact that the other equipment I've got is probably 25 years old and never gives me a day's trouble, these amps have been nothing but trouble, constantly breaking down, and every time they go back for repair, I'm without them for months and months on end. Hence I've ended up with these lower amps, because while they've been in repair, I've bought spares, so I can have them on the shelf for when they're broken. So this one's currently being used because the empty shelf below is empty because one of them's currently in repair. So it's just annoying, and I just want to replace them with something that's cheap, cheerful, not cheap, but, you know, of a decent enough quality to power my speakers in terms of having enough power, but just not super high-end as I've been using to date. I think the days of being a hi-fi enthusiast are behind me, unfortunately, and the days of being a practical studio operator in terms of keeping my show running is far higher on the list. So, as I say, for that reason, the amount that I'm asking for is the replacement with a cheap equivalent for all 3 of the amps that I now want to just get rid of, basically. But ideally, I do need to actually achieve £500 as quickly as I possibly can, so I can just order one and have 2 working speakers, which I currently do not. So that's it. That's the breakdown of why I'm doing a GoFundMe 6 months after the last one, which is for this computer, which was very generously contributed to by GoFundMe for all of the ancillary equipment, monitors, cables, everything that went along with the computer that a very generous show watcher just bought me and gave me, and I've stuck it in, and it's been, I'm going to say, fantastic ever since. It hasn't. It's been a nightmare, but that's any computer that you substitute in when you're using it daily to actually make your money, which is what I use it for. So that's, part of the course. But as I say, this is the latest GoFundMe. It's called Studio Amps Go Down, Go Boom Boom. And there's a brief description of how troublesome these amps have been since I've had them, and my explanation that I'm not going to replace them with probably £5,000 a box equivalents. No, that's not what I'm asking for. I'm asking for about a tenth of what they originally cost at retail to get cheap and cheerful replacements. So I'm asking for about £1,500, which hopefully I'll achieve. It's about the amount that I typically have asked for in the past when I've done these GoFundMe campaigns, and I've achieved that end. So hopefully I can do so, at least get 500 quid as quickly as possible, so I can just crack on without straining to hear one of the speakers at the other side of the room. Anyway, these are the problems that you have when you are a YouTuber and you don't have a massive channel that you can just commercially pay for all this stuff. I have to reach out to my audience and say, hopefully you'll take pity on me and contribute to this GoFundMe campaign as you have done in the past. If you're unfamiliar with GoFundMe, this reminds me, I shouldn't have used GoFundMe. Somebody actually specifically said a whole list of reasons and showed me citations and sources for why I shouldn't use GoFundMe. And I've just, as soon as I've been in need, immediately dived straight back into it through habit. I'm so sorry. If you're the person that told me not to use GoFundMe, please contact me again. Give me an alternative, and next time I'll use that. In the meantime, I've done this now. I don't know what to say. I'm sorry if you're that person. Anyway, once you actually put in an amount, so once you actually decide how much you want to contribute to my GoFundMe campaign, if indeed you do, I'll get to what you can do if you didn't want to contribute. You then set the tip amount to 0, so it automatically will give you an amount that you're just arbitrarily going to be giving to GoFundMe. Don't do that. They're going to take a chunk of it anyway. So yeah, just put the amount in that you want, set the whatever they call it, tip amount to 0. And that's about it. Pick the place that you want the funds to come to, and hopefully I'll get to my at least £500 target pretty quickly. Ideally, I'd get to 1,500 quid and just blitz the whole lot. But that may not be the case immediately. It may be a long-running campaign. It may be going on for weeks and weeks on end, with me occasionally mentioning it on the live shows. It may get wrapped up in a day or two. You just never know with these things. But yeah, obviously a big shout out to the person who's already contributed in spite of me just sharing it on a Twitter and Facebook feed. So there we go. I've already got a contributor. So thank you very much indeed to Rebecca Flowers, who says FED is an asset to YouTube, and you do an amazing job with the panel. Sorry, I'm reading it at a distance. Much appreciated, Nathan, and hopefully you smash your goal. Love the title of the campaign too. Brilliant. Thank you very much indeed for being the first person to actually contribute to the GoFundMe before I've really talked about it or shouted it out. So thank you very much, Rebecca. Really do appreciate support. Okay, so with that, yes, as I say, I will hand over to whoever is in Discord and G+, so you can enjoy their dulcet tones while I set up for today's live show.
Hey, Righteous, what's happening?
Not much. I'm just finding out about this GoFundMe that Nathan started.
Yeah, did you notice that I just vanished and inexplicably in the middle of yesterday's show?
No,
yes,
I
we
wasn't
did
around for that.
notice.
Oh, yes and no. Well, okay. Well, what happened was suddenly one of the amps displayed the exact same stupid fault that it's displayed half a dozen times prior when I've had it repaired, and just started crackling and distorting. I did actually catch it, so I stopped and thought I'll catch this, and picked up the iPad and just started filming it. And then sod's law, it stopped doing it. And then I sat down and then it started doing it again. So I picked up the iPad again, started filming it, and then just did a sign sweep, because going from past experience when I filmed the exact same fault previously for my tech guy, it's really difficult to catch it. So it's hard to actually explain what's going on. So I just ran a sign sweep through it. And when you've got a sign sweep running through it, you can really hear it because it's loud. But basically, I can no longer make out what's being said because one of the speakers is crackling and distorting and doing what it does. So I was just like, crap, what am I going to do? So I just turned it off, reset the system, swapped a couple of cables over, and then made it just all come out of one speaker on the left, which is just a bit further away. And it means it's now functioning. I can now hear. It's just I've already got one amp in repair. It's just pissing me off Constant bloody amp repairs. Ugh. Anyway, yes, it did draw a halt to the show in terms of me being able to actually function, which is hearing you.
So you halted the show without saying anything?
No, I didn't halt the show. I just started to correct the problem with me on mute. So obviously, I'll continue to let the show record. If it was live, I would have ended the show because I can't have audio going out to the general public unmonitored. That's just like the worst thing ever. Now, in terms of a recording, at least I can try and solve the problem and then come back to the recording and see if there's anything awry. And once I've assessed it, I can then release it to the public if it's fine. Because you can check after the fact. But if it's going out live and I lose an amp, that's it. I've got to end the show. I can't carry on. Because what happens if someone's saying something they shouldn't because they know I can't hear it, or they figured out I've got a problem, and then they just say something that YouTube algorithm picks up on and just ends the channel. You know, you can't not monitor a live show.
Right. Okay. But you got it running off the one app now, so...
I've got one amp running, yeah. My wife asked me as I was leaving for a homeschool class, she was like, can I use them? I was like, yeah, you can still use them. It still functions. It's just back to hanging on by a shoestring. So there was a period about a year ago when I had everything functioning. All of the amps were working. That lasted about a month. So there we go. Now it's back to hanging on by one speaker. Which some might be in the audience. So what? Is that if it works, that's all you need, right? And the argument could be, yeah, that's absolutely right. You know, I could just let it carry on with one speaker and just strain a little bit to hear it, or have it feed back a little bit if I turn it up. That is one solution. I don't want that to be the solution. I want to just get rid of my very, very, very loved heart. You know, it's heart-wrenching having to sell something like that. But, you know, needs must. There's bills to pay. I've got mortgage to pay like everybody else. Eventually, you've got to kiss goodbye to your 10 grand amps and go, you can't have them anymore. They're broken. They don't work. You can't keep throwing money at them. You're throwing good money after bad. Just accept it. They don't work anymore. Which is heartbreaking. Honestly, it's heartbreaking. It's like somebody that owns a Ferrari or something going, yeah, it's beyond
Time for a
economical
change,
repair.
Nathan. Just deal with it. Deal with your emotions.
Oh.
The show must go on. I understand you're attached to them, but get better ones.
Well, I gotcha. So
There aren't
the-
better ones.
the ones you had were 10
You
grand, and the
can't
ones for
tell
the
me that they
GoFundMe
don't
is
make
like...
any better ones.
Hold on, Neil.
Or there's another option.
Here we go.
You could get a third one, and then you would have the A train, B train, and C train. If C train goes down, you still have a redundancy, and you have time to fix the other.
That is exactly what I did. So I bought 2 mono amps. Why'd you buy mono amps? Because they're more reliable. Just one amplifying channel in one box. Very reliable. Bollocks. What a load of nonsense. But they started to break, so I went and bought a third one as a spare. Redundancy, right? Where's the spare currently? Being repaired.
Still?
I could buy a fourth one, and I did suggest that to my wife. I was like, shall I buy another 650? I'll find one on eBay for £1,000 and just buy another one. And then I'll have one that's got 2 channels in it as a spare. That's 2. So why am I having to, with high-end audio equipment, have spares? It's nuts. It's just stupid.
Well,
Hey, Nathan.
Most
hold
people
on
don't
one
have
second.
spare amplifiers. It's just not something that's normally on anybody's mind. When you get to the point that you're like, shall I buy another several £1,000 amplifier for a spare? You're like, this is ludicrous.
Hey, Nathan. I did hear on your re-up of the show yesterday. What was it, 1827C with the whole Humble H thing? And I did hear him smirking on that one part. I listened really close, and you could tell he had a smile on his face. I don't know how, but I know what you're talking about. I
You can-
rewinded it 3 times and I listened.
You
I
can hear
said,
it.
that son of a bitch is smirking.
I spent a lot of
Yes!
times in sales on phones, right? And you've got far less to go on. Face-to-face sales is miles easier because you can read their reactions there and then. If you've got it slightly wrong in terms of your approach, you can tell immediately and adapt it on the spot. On the phone, you've got 10% of that, which is just how they sound. That's it. That's all you've got to go on. So you've got to, or I had to when I was in sales, be hyper hypervigilant, I think is the word. Maybe that's the wrong word, but hypersensitive to the tonality of people's voice, how they're phrasing things.
Mic check, mic check.
Hello.
Oh yeah, my brother says that he says that on the phone conversation you got to stick to facts only. He said you can't bullshit people over the phone.
Yeah, it's just more that you got to kind of, with sales, you're gauging where the conversation's going, and you're listening to the responses, and you're listening out for signs that it isn't going your way, you know. And I've heard that reaction from somebody on the phone before. It's the same as Humble H, where they lead you to believe that they're your customer. In other words, they're dangling the idea that there's a sale at the end of this phone call. But at some point in the phone call, they have that reaction where they just let it slip a little bit, that they're just wasting your time, that they are never going to buy what you are selling, ever. And they know it, but they've got nothing better to do with their afternoon. And when you call them on it or detect something not quite right, they'll smirk because they've been caught, and they're not going to tell you they've been caught, but they know, oh, you're suspecting that I'm just wasting your time. That gives them a little kick, and they let it out. You can hear it. You could hear it with Humble.
I heard it loud and clear, and I listened 3 times, and I said to myself, Nathan's right. He is smirking right now. Unreal.
Yeah.
Are we saying Humble's a phony?
No, not necessarily. In that particular scenario, for whatever reason, he was intentionally getting to a point where it had been concisely disseminated to him. And he'd go, oh, well, I'll just go home now then. Or something like that. Like, you're just trying to wind up the panel, me, whoever. I don't know what your motive is, and I don't care. But it's not a righteous motive. Whatever
To
your
me,
intent
Humble
is,
always
it's
came
not
across pretty
righteous.
humble.
Say again? We can't hear what you say if you start your sentence in the middle of when I'm talking, unfortunately. You'll have to say it again.
I mean, to me, Humble came always across as pretty genuine, but I don't know. It's just shocking to hear that, I guess.
A checklist.
What?
A site survey.
Wow, you're a bad judge of character,
I
Gene. I'm
don't-
sorry.
I don't think
Well,
he's a
this
bad judge
is
of character.
through audio.
People are sometimes tuned to those sorts of things for whatever reason. They've become attuned to them.
Hold on a second. Remember what this guy said? What's his name? The other guy, D Rose. He said, "Listen, and one day, he said the amount of time you spent on it and all that you've been communicating with him, I got it, and I got it too. I got a lot more knowledge out of it now. So tell me how he didn't get it, okay?"
He was intentionally not getting it. I don't know why, and I don't care.
That's
frankly,
what
but
I mean. That's what I'm saying to Gene. He should have gotten
What's
it.
up?
So there's a different motive there.
Yeah, I don't know what his
I
motive
feel
is,
you,
and I don't care. But either way, that's one of the reasons I want to keep decent speakers. Not necessarily really hi-fi quality for top quality music reproduction, but I do want to keep the general setup that I've got functioning for that very reason. There's a reason why I've gone out of my way spending literally thousands of pounds turning this room into a studio, so I can hear a pin drop. It's so that when things like that happen, I can hear them. Now, typically, if there's 2 people talking and you've just got a set of headphones on, there's a good chance you won't be able to make out what's being said, or you'll just hear one person and things like that. I've heard about guys in Discord say it only the other day. I could only hear him. All right. Well, here, I can hear everything. And that's how I want it to remain. I want to be able to hear absolutely everything that's being said. And then decide what's the garbage that needs to be filtered out for the audience, what's the colour commentary that needs to be filtered out for the audience, and what doesn't. So that the end result is a show that's audible, listenable, not a complete gaggle screw of people talking through each other at vastly different volumes and things like that. But also, just having this gear means, like I say, with Humble, I could hear that in real time. Not going back afterwards. Not like the behaviour panel where they've got all the time in the world to scroll through and listen at 3 times speed and all those things and really analyse it with all the time. No, you've got to hear it there and then to be able to call it. And if you've heard wrong, which has happened last time when I was down an amp, I kept just mishearing what people were saying, and I'd start attacking arguments I thought they'd made because I'd misheard them. And you're like, oh, well, that's the worst thing. You just look like you're intentionally not hearing them. And it's not the case. It's like, no, I can't actually hear them on only one speaker. And in the past, it's pissed me off because you get to listen back to the show, and you go, you didn't actually hear what he said. You misheard him. Annoying. Anyway.
Why are you gonna make me prove a flat Earth?
Yeah, I heard that clearly enough. I just spun that. Or maybe I didn't. I can't remember.
No, it was close enough.
Yeah, my question, don't be offended. What are we doing today? What's on the agenda?
We'll do the end of the video we did yesterday. So yesterday we were covering a video called Astrum, Time Does Not Exist. Let me explain with a graph. We got about 5 minutes in to a 16-minute video.
Could I go ahead and make my point that it kind of never got out yesterday?
Yes.
No.
Right.
I've been waiting for it though. Hold on. I don't mean to usurp your authority, Nathan, but I've been waiting.
Yeah, I don't know why it was getting rumpus, but we don't measure time, right? We only measure entropic processes and correlate it to time. So I was trying to find out what is the process that's happening that we are correlating to time within this device that you say is measuring time and the manufacturer says is measuring time. Well, QE mentioned that it's working on pulses, right, of light. What does that sound like when you talk about a pulse of light? A diffraction pattern? Did I lose connection when I made that point?
Did everybody just drop or what?
No, you guys good?
But yeah, the diffraction pattern, if that's what it's reading, and then it's correlating to an already assumed calculation of the speed of light based on what that pattern will be at that distance, then it's not measuring time. It's taking that pattern and ascribing a time to it. And that's that. Does that make sense to you, Neil?
It makes some kind of sense to me, John. Hello, everyone.
Thank God, Brian. Yeah, that's what, and I think you were trying to mention something about that yesterday. Like, how are we measuring this thing that we're going to correlate to time? Like, just saying it measures time is not proof that it measures time, because time is a concept. It's a correlation we have with processes in nature. But what process is being used to say this is measuring how many nanoseconds, you know? I think it's actually taking the pattern it's getting and then ascribing a time to it.
Yeah, it could be. I mean, Kiwi said his one, it does not work off of the use of trigonometry. But I don't know if that's correct or not, because he just said that, but he didn't know how it works. So,
no offense, right, guys, but nothing in this conversation is ever going to change what John opened with, which is to say that you've got to take how we describe time and correlate it with something in our physical experience and then ascribe a number when we partition it. That is what he said, but that's what I'm taking from it, right? So it doesn't matter if you take, is it cesium or whatever, the decay rate of some material, or the elapsed period divided by 360 or whatever you've done with the sun, or divided by 24 for one revolution of it around us, or us around it if you're a heliocentrist. You're always correlating something that's a convention with segmented sections that's correlated with something you can physically experience. But that's all it'll ever be. So when you go back to some machine that's deriving it by some correlation with something, when you get to, well, what is the actual process? It doesn't change the fact that we're never going to make time a physical thing. We're only going to ever get back to the starting point of where it was correlated with something in physical reality. That's all you'll ever get to, isn't it? Am I wrong? Am I missing something? I did listen to a good chunk of yesterday's discussion, as much as my amps broke.
Solar time is not a convention, because that's a real cycle that we have to observe that happens daily. So
What's
we
not?
can
I didn't hear
definitely
the
say
first bit.
solar time is not a convention, but anything we derive from that has to be a convention.
Yeah.
Well, see, the thing is, right? Like, we have this where there's these celestial bodies that occupied different positions, right? And we perceive it, how we perceive it as motion in the sky, and we ascribe a time to it. Now, when people talk about the waveform of light, or, pulsing light, a lot of times they take what the diffraction pattern and turn it into a wave. We've seen that a lot, right? So I'm thinking that, like, that waveform at different distances alters, and that's what it's actually reading, and then using a back calculation to give it a time.
Maybe. We're just so far off the beaten track. Fascinating though it is to get to the origins of this convention. The origins of this convention will never give us a physical reified time dimension to travel through or bend. And that's where their argument kind of ends. And I do this every single time we come onto this path of discovery when it comes to things like time, physical, geometric, sphere edge horizons, Coriolis effect, whatever it is. We always get to this point where I'm like, don't beg the question for them. Let's not concern ourselves. Why are we answering? What concern is it? So on the one hand, I'm putting the brakes on. Yet in other points of the show, I'm saying, what joy that we are so wondrous in our nature now we don't know anymore. But yet I try and stop people from doing it because in terms of debate, it's a folly. It serves no purpose. If you're not making a claim about time or reifying time, explaining how a piece of technology works with the convention of time just seems like a hiding to nothing. What are you trying to achieve? What's the end goal here?
Yeah, but we have to remember where this started yesterday. 1 second, sorry, John, I'll be quick. You have to remember where this started yesterday. A poll came in because I laid out the maths in the after show of the two-way speed of light calculation and how it's only an average based off of a 12-month period of orbit of the globe out around its heliocentric sun. And that is the focus that I want to have on this topic, because the point is that that's fraud. It's a sham. That's the point. The whole two-way speed of light, the whole claim of the speed of light, the measurement of the speed of light is a total sham and fraud. Yet it's been promoted as being a real measurement in the world, and they use it and view it as a real measurement when it is not. It's not a real measurement. It's a calculation.
And that's where he jumped in, right, Brian?
Yeah,
he jumped in right after you put that up.
Yeah, and he did it before. And I understand Paul might want to argue about that, but he's missing the point. The main point is that the official claim is fraudulent. That's the main point. That's what I was trying to focus on. But Paul is focusing on the I don't know if you call it effect, whatever you want to call it. He's focusing on that as opposed to, no, the main point is that the official claim is fraudulent. That was my point about it. And that's right. What I would like to focus on.
And his positive claim was that it has to have a known speed because that is how distance measuring devices work.
Right.
Oh, but he got rounded out with QE at the end, though, didn't he? He was talking about the absorption and re-emission that you would use rather than the actual light having a path.
I don't know if he did.
Yeah,
I think he still stands.
No, that was QE I was talking about.
Yeah, I know, but I don't know if Paul agreed with that. Did he?
Does it matter?
Yeah, it's not really agree, disagree.
No, it doesn't matter. You're right.
No offense to Paul, if he was listening, I'm sure he'd understand why it doesn't matter. As John's just pointed out, it's not really agree, disagree.
But yeah,
Good morning.
I understood Paul's point, because we have, it's so ingrained into our society, the speed of light, that, there's so many assumptions already made.
Look, I put that flashlight on the wall. I hit the button and it's there.
Okay.
I think it's instantaneous.
Well, put that
Well,
in
you
your
know,
pipe
you don't
and
have to
smoke it,
make-
ballhead.
You don't have to make that claim, though, because you can't know the one-way speed of light.
I know, but I'm saying it's weird. Light is strange, man.
Like, the moment you try to say you know the speed, you've contradicted the uncertainty principle, and you're in a whole world of shit.
Yes, she just went over that yesterday. Think about it, Cap.
Oh, I found QE kind of thought it was funny. They thought I was joking when I first said it, I guess. But a way to describe the delayed choice quantum eraser outcome.
I'm all ears.
All right. The knower knows if the researcher is capable of knowing.
Stu, I don't know. That's deep, man.
Because who's to say that because it's based on information, not necessarily the researcher's knowledge, right? It's kind of like pointing to God, because he knows if you're going to be able to know it or not. It's not based on his uncertainty, it's based on yours.
Cool.
According to scripture, without faith, it's impossible to please God. There has to be a faith there.
I don't know why we
Typically,
entertain the Bible stuff. We can't prove it.
when someone on the panel says something profound and there's a short pause followed by a subject change, that tends to tell me that people haven't recognized the profound nature of what's just been said. Thank you, John.
I know what he said, but my mind is on humble H, and I told him a while ago, you need faith. He's trying to prove God with an experiment.
Okay.
Well, I was trying to help him out with that,
And that's what I'm saying. Without faith, it's impossible to please him. So how can you help him out with that? Takes a certain amount of faith.
I don't believe he wanted any of those things. Sorry, Neil.
Yeah, you might be right. You might be right.
Good morning.
Morning.
May 10th, my warrior brother.
I caught the light reference, so
Very
let's
amusing,
go
Neil.
to the scriptures in Genesis, what light is for, before we try to figure out what the speed is. In verse 14, chapter 1, and God said, let there be lights in the firmament of the heavens to separate the day from the night, and let them be for signs and for seasons and for days and years. Let them be lights in the firmament of the heavens to give light upon the earth. And it was so. And God made two great lights, the greater light to rule the day, and the lesser light to rule the night, and the stars. And God set them in the firmament of the heavens to give light on the earth, to rule over the day and over the night, and separate the light from the darkness. And God saw it was good. And there was evening, and there was morning, the fourth day. So we have obviously the purpose for light from the sun, and one to guide through the night would be the moon.
Is it?
And it's What?
I said, is it?
Yeah, this is what it says in Genesis.
No, I get
This
that's
is the
what it says in
purpose for
Genesis,
the.
but I'm saying, is the moon ruling the night?
No, it's there for the night,
Is it?
so it's not complete darkness.
Keep asking the
Yeah,
same
this
thing.
is saying right here.
No, the moon is often not in the sky in the night, and sometimes in the
No,
sky in the day.
it's got its. No, I know it's got its cycle. It's not getting into the micro sessions of its 28 day or whatever cycle. It's just telling you what the purpose for it is. But what I find interesting, it says and for seasons. What does the heliocentric model say causes the seasons?
FOR or FOUR?
FOR.
4 seasons and 4 seasons. I don't understand the context now.
FOR. It's for the seasons, meaning how the seasons change. It's the lights that move that cause the seasons change, not the earth being tilted, is my point.
Right.
Thank you.
Yeah, the interaction between them seems to cause like subcycles is the only way I could describe them. Been noting them to my wife for years, to the point where when they worked, we used to clock our heating based on the sort of cycles that you go through in winter. You'll have warm snaps and cold snaps. Sometimes it'll snow, sometimes you'll go outside and won't even need a coat.
When it takes 1 year for the sun to traverse the solstices and the 2 points of the equinox, the winter and summer equinox, that is where you experience the 4 seasons in that 1 year. It's the sun that's moving.
Sure. Observably.
What do you mean? We're not spinning? I have people telling me I'm spinning.
They're entitled to their beliefs.
Exactly. Keyword beliefs. We don't have beliefs here. We have facts.
Well, I would say that they're entitled to their beliefs as long as they don't endanger you and manifest reality.
When you say manifest
other
reality,
people.
do you mean manifest reality in the mind's eye of the person reifying the model, or do you mean actually make manifest a reality that you exist in? Because that's not possible.
I'm saying you can believe in unicorns, but if you think if you push someone off a building, if you believe that if you push someone off a building, a unicorn will save them. Yeah, that's not cool.
No. But that's what we have with heliocentrism, isn't it?
Well, isn't that what Darcy Redioff said?
Who?
Yeah, I was trying to make reference to that. Yes, sir.
Didn't hear what you said. Say again.
I said, isn't that what Darcy Redioff said? When I found that quote as a response to Andrew Hill talking in The Spectator. He said, one can, of course, believe anything one likes as long as the consequences of the belief are trivial. But when someone's survival depends on belief, then it matters that belief corresponds to manifest reality.
Nice.
We therefore teach navigators that the stars are fixed to the celestial sphere, which is centered on a fixed earth and around which it rotates in accordance with laws clearly deducible from common sense observation. The sun, the moon move across the inner surface of the sphere, and hence pre-force go around the earth. This means that students of navigation must unlearn a lot of the confused dogma they learned in school. Most of them find it remarkably easy because dogma is as maybe, but the real world is as we perceive it to be. If Andrew Hill will look into the Journal of Navigation, he will find that the Earth-centered universe is alive and well, whatever his readings of The Spectator may suggest. Darcy Redioff, Royal Air Force, College, Cranfield.
Can you drop and rejoin? You're a bit broken up.
Yeah.
Decent enough latency, though. No delay.
I love that.
Yeah, unlearning nonsense that doesn't comport, where you have to convert things from flat plane elevation angle measurements but deny that the horizontal is actually flat, to to then convert it into the presupposition of an hour-based sphere model so that you can say it works when you transpose that angle to the center of an Earth that you're not standing on. You're like, yeah, the rhetoric's really hard to work around, whereas if you just use the flat plane that you're measuring, it's dead easy.
Yeah, which, like the other day, I was saying about applying standards equally about celestial navigation. I wasn't saying it as a punishment to celestial navigation. I think the tramp stamp is true enough. The idea that the Earth is a model is an antiquated idea. You know, so maybe, just maybe, but it's not as bad as we think. It's only bad in the mind's eye of a heliocentrist who sees it.
Maybe.
Mic check.
Yeah, that's better.
I got Neil deGrasse talking about gas pressure for you today, if you'd like to handle it.
Thought we were going to continue with.
I'd like to.
Go on.
Oh, well, you guys didn't finish? Because I had to go yesterday.
No.
Okay, yeah. Well, then save it for afterwards.
What did you want to do,
We
Brian?
fell in.
No, I was going to say, I'd like to pick up Neil on something he said. I could talk a few minutes ago. Neil said, we don't have beliefs. But Neil, you just brought up the Bible. And that is, you are one of us, and that is a belief. So every time someone brings up the Bible, they're bringing up a belief, because it's part of a belief system. So you can't say we don't have beliefs when several of the panel members are staunch Bible followers. We do have beliefs.
It depends what context you put it in. If you're going to say, I heard Gene say, you can't prove the Bible. Well, that's totally untrue. You can. I've been to Israel. Everything talks about that area, region still exists that way in this geography. The kings, the people, the times, the practices of the different cultures, that's proven to be true through archaeology and so forth. The eyewitnesses to Jesus and his resurrection, that has withstood all critics. So yes, I believe in the message and the supernatural that most people won't do, but even the harshest critic would say, okay, I accept everything in the Bible, but I just don't believe the supernatural statements. So if you're going to say that, that's fine.
Well, what I would say is, whatever you say there now, I'm not going to argue with it. I wouldn't go align with what you said. Concerning what you said was proof of the Bible, because I'm not going to go into it, but to me, I wouldn't align with that. But the point is that if you bring up the Bible within this topic, you're not bringing up proof. You're bringing up a belief. So
That's
the Bible,
said,
like when you brought up when you brought up the chapter from Genesis, that's not proof. That's just a reference, but it's not proof. The Bible is not a proof of what the world is or why it is the way it is. Now, it's okay to have beliefs. It's not wrong with beliefs. Just 1 second. There's nothing wrong with beliefs. They're not attacking you for having beliefs or Neil for having beliefs, because I have beliefs. The point is, we can't say we don't have beliefs when we do.
Is taking a primary source, well, hold on a second. Is taking a primary source as a belief, is that really fair?
And I would always ask the question when people get into this, they talk about evidence. What evidence would you require for the Bible to be true?
I don't know, but when you're not talking, can you try and stay on mute, Paul? Because you do cause quite a lot of background noise.
Sorry.
That's okay.
Sorry about that.
You want to repeat your question, though, because I've kind of stolen your thunder?
That's okay. If you're saying there's no evidence for the Bible, or whatever 10th man was saying about this is evidence, you say that's not evidence or whatever, there's no evidence. What evidence would you require to show the Bible to be true?
Okay.
I asked this question of atheists.
Neither of you picked up on what John put down. What John was trying to say, I'll rephrase. It's a different standard. If you're talking about a historic standard of evidence, the standard's very different to what we typically deal with on a daily basis, which is a scientific standard. They're not the same thing. I think that was your point, John. Was I wrong in picking up what you were putting down there?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Like that's, and if you want to say you can prove it empirically, I won't stand with that. But if you want to say that you can prove it's, you know, historically accurate, I most definitely will stand by you on that.
Can I say something?
Because
Yeah,
just
sorry,
because you
go-
call it the Bible doesn't take away that it does have primary source. You know?
but
Well,
just to address
me and my
Paul,
brother.
um,
Go ahead.
sorry, I'll just be quick. Just to address Paul, I mean, you could show me that like everything that Ken said was correct, and all these historical facts all align, but that doesn't prove Noah. For example, do you understand what I mean? That doesn't prove Genesis. It just proves a historical alignment. That's my point.
Okay, so what would
Well,
be required for you to believe Noah's story?
I don't know if it would be possible to come up with the evidence to prove that. How would you come up with the evidence to prove Noah and the story of the ark? How would you come up with? I'm not saying it's not. See, I didn't say I don't know, but the point is, what could you come up with to prove it? My point was you're kind of.
Well,
My point was is that you can't something being aligning historically doesn't prove every part of the book.
How about evidence of a worldwide flood?
and
Yeah,
also
well,
in
there might be
Turkey right
evidence of that.
now, and also in Turkey right now, even the country of Turkey, they've created a national park of an area which says that they think they found Noah's Ark in Turkey.
keyword
So
think.
either-
Well, yeah, but I saw is that I've seen
Well,
that
okay.
before. Mount Ararat, is it Mount Ararat? Is it that?
Yeah,
Is
I
that
mean they've got
Turkey?
it. You can go into
Yeah.
Google Earth. Right, you can go into Google Earth, type in Noah's Ark in Turkey, and you can zoom right into what they've discovered.
Yeah,
And
but
now
that doesn't
you
prove
can
the
you
Bible.
have to
I just
argue whether
use
that's
Noah
evidence or
as an
not.
example. Yeah, but I just use
I
Noah
know,
and as an example. That doesn't prove
but I mean, if
everything
you,
that's in the Bible is true. We see when you're referring to the Bible, you're referring to a whole host of stories and information that's in there. So even if Noah and the ark and the flood were true, that doesn't prove everything else in the Bible. You understand what I'm
Well,
saying?
that's- But yeah, I have already answered that. Depends what context you're referring to. Now, historically, geographically, all these things, there's a problem with the Bible. The Smithsonian uses it for archaeology, and they say it is spot on. They stood in there, believe in evolution. But the whole point is, we're saying the problem with people in the Bible is not so much the historicity of the Bible or the times and the people, and was there an Abraham, was there a Jewish nation, are there Chaldeans, are there Babylonians? It records everything as it was. It's a record, it's a history. The problem is the supernatural part of it, where God is using that book and those writings to reach people and share a message of salvation about a Messiah that's going to come. That's the problem, that people who know the ancient languages, who go look for contradictions, say, look, I don't have a problem. I just don't believe all the books that Paul wrote, but I believe these 7 he wrote. And they say, but those 7 attest to everything that the apostles wrote in the Gospels. So the only thing I don't like is the supernatural. So they admit to it.
You're breaking up really quite badly. I don't know if you want to drop and rejoin again.
Yeah, it's the internet. I apologize.
Yes, okay.
But
Yeah.
Welcome to the Flat Earth Debate Live. I'm your host Nathan Oakley, and if you are new to this channel, or you've not done so already, then be sure to subscribe, hit the bell notification icon, and join button if you'd like to become a Nathan Oakley 1980 channel member and keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. If you would like to support the channel, there is a super chat that runs alongside each of these shows while they are live, and there's also a PayPal, Patreon, crypto, and thanks button in the info box below the video. Most importantly, if you'd like to join the discussion, simply mute the page you are currently watching, then click the link in the info box below this video this video to join the panel and express your views on the nature of Earth. If you do join, please don't swear. If you do, you'll be ejected. And if you are, please don't try to rejoin the stream using sock accounts. You'll be warmly welcomed back on the next stream. Please also share the show on social media. Sharing the show often increases the live audience, but this is often not the case. If you don't share the show, we won't get a larger live audience. So please share the show on Facebook and Twitter. Now, we are joined by 10th Man, Refracted Curvature, Neil Constantino, if I'm saying his name correctly, probably not, and Brian's Logic, together with a whole bunch of people in Discord, so welcome one and all.
Hello. And
Hey, good morning.
Cosentino.
Hey, good afternoon.
Good morning. Good
Constantino.
morning.
I had a T in there for some reason, I don't know why.
Yeah, Cosentino. Cosentino.
Cosentino.
Not cons. No, it's not C-O-N, it's C-O-S. Cosentino.
Cosentino. All right, Cosentino?
Tell him, Brian. Tell him.
You tell me, it's your name. Cosentino.
That's correct. Perfect.
Neil Constantino. Stuck a T in there still.
There he goes again.
I can't help it. I was getting my tongue twisted all around the intro as well. It's because I know I've got to e-beg at some point during the show, so that's probably why. Anyway, how you all doing in Discord? You all excited? Yeah,
Hey.
really excited. Okay, right, before we do it, I am going to get into a little bit of e-begging. So I've started a fundraiser. So I've done a GoFundMe campaign, as I've done many times in the past, and even for this exact same thing in the past, which is frustrating as it comes. But there we go. In the past, I've tried to get funds to repair these very, very expensive high-end amps that I actually used to sell when I was a rep to various different studios and retailers, and they're extremely nice, and I'm very attached to them, but they just keep breaking. And it's come to the end of the point where I'm happy spending £500 to £800 each time they break. So what I've suggested to the people who hopefully will support me is that I raise the money, hopefully for at least one of their replacements, so I can get the show running again on 2 speakers, which would be nice. But hopefully I can just blitz it and replace all 3. You can't actually see the third because that's currently in repair, shockingly, as will this be probably if I want to sell it. But anyway, the fact is I need replacing these 13-year-old amps with something that's going to be warranted and just not have to be given any thought. So unfortunately, due to a load of circumstances beyond YouTube control, that is to say that I can't really e-beg for washing machines, I've just bought an absolute ton of stuff, and therefore when it comes to things in the show breaking, I just have to extend my hand, which is what I'm doing now. So there we go. So that's the GoFundMe campaign. I will stick a link in the live stream chat, or hopefully if one of my moderators can do that for me, that'd be greatly appreciated. But there are a couple of little things that I would suggest if you do decide that you want to donate to this GoFundMe campaign. That is to say that if you add the amount that you're going to, I don't know, $20 in this instance, just slide the tip 0. That's all you need to do. They already take a chunk. You don't have to give them extra, or in my opinion, obviously, if you feel so inclined that you must give GoFundMe a tip in spite of them taking a certain amount of the campaign anyway, then that's entirely up to you, but I wouldn't suggest it. But yeah, so yeah, if you did not want to support the campaign, it would be just as helpful, and I appreciate that not everyone's got the kind of funds that want to support things like amplifiers on a show. When you're a bigger YouTuber, I'm sure you can just afford to buy a new amplifier. Me, I can't, so I have to do these things. And if you can't afford to support me in the same way I can't afford to buy amplifiers, it's just as helpful for you to share it. So go on to the GoFundMe campaign when you see a link for it, and just stick it on Facebook, stick it on Twitter. It has been more than one occasion where someone's share has directly resulted in someone else contributing to the campaign. And it does show me that in the statistics. So it does mean something if you actually go and stick it on Twitter for me. And I really, really appreciate it if you do share it. So thank you in advance if you do take the time to either contribute, which is obviously greatly appreciated, or indeed share the campaign. It may run for a day or 2. You never know. I might get enough money to chuck 500 quid in a new amp, and then I'll never have to mention it. It can be a long-going campaign to replace the other 2 over a long period. You never know. If that would be ideal, because then I can actually hear what my panel are saying, which isn't the case at the moment. Anyway, there's my GoFundMe campaign. Like I say, smash the link. It's going through. I'll put it in the info box after the live show's finished if you're not watching live. And hopefully I'll just mention it again at the end of the stream. The only other thing I will do is shout out to somebody who did actually contribute. I noticed as soon as the campaign was set up, without me actually mentioning it, which was Rebecca. So thank you very much indeed to Rebecca for already supporting the campaign. So it's already off the ground, which is lovely. First time it's getting mentioned, and it's already got somebody supporting it. So really appreciate that, as it looks great. So thank you so much, Rebecca, for supporting the GoFundMe campaign. I will mention it again at the end of the show. Hopefully I won't have to e-beg you to all hell and death and all the rest of it throughout the show. So I'll just mention it again when we get to the end of the live show. But that's hopefully it for me e-begging in this live show. Righto, we'll do a couple of housekeeping questions and then we'll carry on with the video that we got about halfway through, or a third of the way through yesterday, which was from Astrid or something like that. Astrum. May as well share his link, as I encourage others to do when they are responding to me. If they respond to me, I'd obviously encourage that they'd share my link in their video, as I'm doing now with my live audience. So check out this video, obviously. Tell him how wonderful his material is. Maybe mention that Nathan Oakley 1980 channel sent you when you give him a like, and tell him how much you love his stuff. And if you also feel inclined, let him know that we responded to his video, which is called Time Does Not Exist, Let Me Explain with a Graph. But before we do so, we will ask a couple of quick housekeeping questions. So any scientific evidence of gravity? Anybody on the panel or Discord, feel free to answer.
No, because the effect that was supposed to be caused by gravity, or that is gravity, or whatever, is not clearly defined. So what is the effect? Without the effect, how can we do an experiment?
My daughter brought up the effect on the way to a class today. So I was having to explain to her, we're just having lots of disasters at the moment. This is one I haven't mentioned before. But as a byproduct of not having any heat, the pipes that run through the building keep getting massive amounts of condensation setting on them because they're so cold, which drips down and starts rotting carpets and doing all sorts of horrible other things, which I get very stressed about. Anyway, I was explaining to my daughter how that process happens. So I'm like, well, we have a shower in the morning and it creates steam. Well, the steam will eventually disperse its way through all the other gases in the building and eventually make its way to something that's cold, turn back into water and condense. Now, she understands the process of phase change. She's already been taught that, so she pretty much picked it up. Right. Later on, on the journey, she's talking about, because she obviously knows what I do, some YouTuber that said Earth isn't flat. And she's like, why would he go out of his way to say that? I said, well, what type of YouTuber is he? Well, he's a gamer. Well, what game is he playing? Well, he's playing Solar Smash. I was like, right. So he's playing a game that's basically affirming his religious belief in a heliocentric world every time he plays it. Now, in the same way I wouldn't suggest to my daughter that you tell him he's wrong, that's not your place. He's entitled to believe what he likes. Likewise, it's not really fair that he starts dictating what's wrong to his audience, but that's not for me to say either. You know, that's just standards that you lay down in society that you try and adhere to when people express their beliefs. You nod, you smile, don't argue with them, it's not polite. You know, that's kind of what I was explaining. Anyway, she was like, well, why isn't space real? And I said, well, you earwig the show, you understand, right? Gas fills space, like with the steam. It's spreading out, it's going in all directions, it's coming from the trees. And she said, yeah, but there's a magical force. And I was like, a magical force, Eleanor? She says, yeah, there's a magical force. I just can't remember what it's called. I says, is it called gravity? She went, yeah, that magical force. I'll never forget
would
it.
have been proud.
Yeah, it was just the way she phrased it. She couldn't remember gravity, but she could remember magical force that solves this entropic problem. I was like, no, Eleanor, the gas isn't falling down from the sky, is it, though? Where's it created? And she went, from the trees. Now, what she means by that is I've used the trees as the example when using oxygen. So not necessarily plants. She just said trees because that's what she's been taught so far. But anyway, when I knew what she meant when she responded trees, she means the plants are creating the oxygen, as she understood as she's been taught it, right? So she understood at that point the gases are being created down here, right? Not falling down from up there, right? So she's like, yeah, I get it. And then the conversation kind of pitted out because, you know, there's nothing else to explain, is there? Once you understand how gas behavior works. And a 6-year-old does. Anyway, enough about my daughter.
Well, hold on. What about when she finds out about the magic speed? Wow.
The magic speed for all the impact craters on the moon.
Yeah,
Moving
it's
on.
good that she remembered magic force. Yeah, straight
It's just
away,
the fact that she
they
said
have
magic.
the word magic in front of it.
Exactly, magic.
That's one of the reasons why I always call it a magical spinning water ball flying around in a vacuum. Because the word magical, the way they tell you it works, it it's got to be magic. And globals will get mad at me because I call it magical. It's like, nah, you believe in magic.
They call it
morning, guys.
magic.
Well, I don't call it magic.
Exactly.
No, the thing is, right, I don't want to, for balance, right, after that discussion, what the conversation did go on to was current worldviews in terms of heliocentrism, and I explained them to him. Now, I'm not describing, I can't remember which aspect, I think I talked about the Big Bang and evolution with her. Now, I'm telling her how it is in those terms, and I'm not decrying it or telling her it's wrong as I'm telling her it. I'm just telling her, I think she asked, I can't remember exactly how she phrased this, but she was like, why are you telling me? I'm like, well, because this is what the people in this country believe. And if you don't know it, and somebody tells you that they believe that, and you just start laughing, yeah, that's not a good reaction. People don't like that person. You know, but if you do understand it, and you understand how evolution is understood to work, then at least when someone tells you that that's their understanding, that you can at least nod with an appreciation of what they believe, rather than laughing. Because some of the aspects, as I was telling her, she started laughing at them. Now, it's kind of counterintuitive for you to hear me saying this, but I'm telling her off for it. Like, no, you're going to take this seriously while I'm telling her about Darwin, you know, and explaining that the kids she's going to see at this home ed class, they understand that also. That's what they're going to have been taught. So I just don't want people to think I in any way try and tarnish my kids away from things like evolution and heliocentrism. And if this gets me a load of crap from flat earthers, likewise, I don't care. So I want my kid to be educated in all of the things that people generally understand to be true, whether they are or not. You know, she can come to her own bloody conclusions on those things. She's got her own mind, but I want her to know them. I just don't want anybody to think that, because I homeschool, that they don't get taught things like heliocentrism and evolution. They actually do, and they get exposed to it all the time anyway. But, you know, that's just knowing how the world around you is perceived by your fellow man. Doesn't necessarily mean I'm going to indoctrinate her with it and make her know that that's the case or anything, which is probably what she'd get out of a school. I don't know. I haven't been to a school in a long time. But anyway, it's a fascinating conversation that we're going to draw to a close here because I'm going to ask if there's any scientific evidence. No, any single viable hypothesis from any of the fields of astronomy, cosmology, or astrophysics.
Well, that's kind of the opposite because they have loads of effects, but they can't come up with a cause. Whereas with the gravity question, they can't come up with an effect. But they could have, at one time, claimed an effect. But then Einstein came along and took that effect away and made gravity an effect as opposed to a cause. So it's all upside down.
Well, they do describe an effect. It just doesn't exist in physical reality, does it? So the bending of space-time is the current effect in gravitational terms from an Einsteinian perspective. The cause is also defined. Correct me if I'm wrong. So the effect is bending space-time. That's gravity. The cause is the uneven distribution of mass. In maths, not in physics.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, but see, that's the thing. Like the opposite is that gravity was an effect, right, before Einstein. Gravity was a cause before Einstein. So there was this supposed effect. Then Einstein came along and gave a cause, and people had to make up the effects of this cause. If you look at all the supposed proofs for general relativity, they're all the hijacking of effects in some way, or the creating of effects. You know, the cesium decay rate, you know, in atomic clocks, this kind of stuff. So they're trying to create effects. But at one time, there was something that they claimed in effect, the apple falls to the floor, and they were trying to prove the cause. Then they went the opposite way. They came up with a cause, and then they're trying to come up with, and then afterwards they had to make up a load of effects. So it's like a mirror, complete opposite from each other.
Okay, any other comment on that in that regard to single viable hypotheses being offered from any of those fields? If not, we'll move on to this video. No? Can I ask if you could be so kind, Divergent Droid, can you spam my GoFundMe link in the live stream chat? I'm not gonna mention it again. But yes, if you can do that, that'd be greatly appreciated. Okay, so I'm going to share this video again, even though we've already done it once, because I'd encourage anybody responding to me to do the same on their channel, regardless of their size. What goes around comes around. Please check out this guy's video. So this videographer is called Astrum, And that's his link going by now in the live chat. And we did it yesterday. We've covered a little bit of his video in regards to time, and we're going to carry on now. If you're in the G Plus or Discord panels, feel free, pipe up at any point.
Although this is mathematically sound as a basis for a 4D object, I personally don't find my understanding of 4D space deepened by looking at it. So
it's because you're not looking at anything that exists in a fourth dimensional reified space-time dimension, because there isn't one. That's why it's not helping you realize the fourth dimension. This isn't it.
So I won't focus on it in this video.
Even though you've got it on screen, hypnotizing people. Okay, gotcha. You won't focus on it, but you've intentionally left it in the edit. Gotcha.
There
Is
is
this a
some
continuation from yesterday?
Yes.
I do remember him. You started off with the exact line, "Oh, this is mathematically sound," while a few minutes earlier he described something as impossible. But it's mathematically sound. I love that contrast right there. It's great.
Did he say, I hope I'm coming in, did he say it's hard to imagine?
Yes.
Well, isn't that where it exists, in the imagination? So if it's hard to imagine, and it exists by the imagination, then what is it?
Nah,
It's a concept that only exists in Einsteinian mathematics. Sorry, Chocolate, go ahead.
No, I was just saying, he's just saying that it's hard to imagine that you're just imagining it. That's it, Tim.
Well, I can help him. All you have to do is take that two-dimensional picture you're looking at, reify it into a third dimension in your own mind, and then correlate that to a fourth dimension that no one's ever experienced.
evidence, however, that a fourth direction exists.
Did you say a fourth direction?
Understanding a 4D space deepened by looking at it, so I won't focus on it in this video. There is some evidence, however, that a fourth direction exists.
A fourth direction?
That's what he said.
I don't know what he means.
Maybe it was just a misspeak. We'll brush past that one.
And
Two
we are moving
misspeaks?
Sorry, Neil?
2 times he misspoke? Sounds like a Democrat.
along it right now. That fourth direction or dimension is time.
Oh, direction or dimension? Okie dokie. So you think a vector's the same as a dimension? Okay, gotcha. We shouldn't have brushed past it. It's idiotic.
They can say whatever they
Einstein
want.
Yeah, no consequences.
So time is a direction now?
It's just
Okay.
convoluting certain aspects of the convention that's been reified into a fourth dimension with a journey taking place through the dimension. But he thinks that that makes it a direction, a vector. It's just an idiot. He doesn't know what he's talking about.
Predicted this connection when he linked space
Connection? Is it a direction, a dimension, or a connection? I mean, I have no idea.
and time into one
Or a
unified
correction.
I'm not going to ask.
space-time in its theories of relativity.
These aren't theories. Theories come after scientific validation through experimentation based on a hypothesis after experiencing a phenomena you want to know the cause of, supposing the cause, varying the cause, proving the cause actually influenced the effect, and then forming a theory. Einstein didn't do that. He hasn't got any theories. It's just stealing valor from scientific experimentation that has empiricism attached. So when you, the public, hear the word theory, you assume this moustache man has got some science. He hasn't.
According to him, time and space are
Nathan?
two parts.
Last week we did Sabine Hoffassender. It's hard to say her name, but she said, and she gave props to Einstein. Instead of saying what this guy said, she said he was the best at thought experiments, not real experiments that have scientific theories. So it's a thought experiment that he was good at.
Parts of the same thing. To me, this connects with 4D space very nicely.
Does it? We haven't seen it yet. How does it connect with it? You've told us how difficult it is to see when you show two-dimensionality in a three-dimensional representation, morphing through itself after saying it doesn't help you see fourth-dimensionally. You took a long time over explaining what three-dimensionals look like, but you didn't explain or show or give us any cause to understand or envisage, let alone have a physicality to a fourth dimension. Yet you see how it strongly connects? Ugh. What a load of old nonsense.
Just as there is no real difference between the Z and the X or Y
Other than them being fundamentally different?
directions, so too would there not be any difference between time and space if
Other than time isn't a dimension. It's only been described that way by a man called Einstein, and you now say that you see no difference between the dimensions in 3D terms, and therefore because of which you can reify a fourth one? It's absurd. This is crap.
time
Well,
is just
he's
another
done.
Well, sorry, John.
John, you go first.
I was going to say he's doing that so he can create a Cartesian coordinate system, right? With space on the left going 90 degrees to time, and then he can graph motion along it as proof that space-time exists.
Yeah,
Brian.
when he says space, is he talking about space as in length, breadth, and depth, or is he talking about the vacuum of heliocentric space?
No, he's
Which one
talking
of
about
them-
length, breadth, depth, and time. When he says space, he means space-time. He means the fourth dimension, invented in the mind's eye of Einstein. That's what he means.
So that would be, how would that be synonymous with time, length, breadth, and depth? I
It
don't
isn't.
get his connection.
It isn't. He hasn't shown us either. I just said that. He hasn't shown us that. But now he's saying how he understands and appreciates how closely correlated it is. All he did was show a picture of Einstein. That's all he did.
direction,
Right, well, I
or
don't see the connection then.
There isn't one.
be it one that we can't see. And time is important. Without time, our 3D space wouldn't move.
Really? Sorry, 3D space is moving? Length, breadth, and time move? No, sorry. Sorry. Length, breadth, and depth move? No. What are you talking about? My table in front of me has a length, breadth, and depth. It's not moving. Oh, what's that you say? It's moving through the arrow of time? Yeah, that's entropy. Yeah, it's experiencing decay. Yeah, that's an entropic effect. You can describe that, entropy, as the arrow of time, but that doesn't make it a dimension, and it doesn't mean the table's moving.
It would perpetually be in one state, because it's time that allows us to move about in it. But why can't we see it?
Time isn't allowing me to do anything. How I quantify, perhaps the day and night cycle, so I can correlate it with a number structure, doesn't allow me to even perform the process to give us that description, what we call time. That concept didn't allow me to do anything. Nonsense.
Why can't we look in the direction of time?
Because it's not a direction!
To explain this, let's look at the
Sorry, to explain a question? You don't explain questions, you answer them, like I just did. Why can't we look in the direction of time? Because time's not a direction. Yeah, that's an answer to a question. You don't then go forth to postulate how you'll answer this by looking further into it. Just answer it. Yeah, you don't. It's not a dimension.
difference between the different...
Further to that, it's not a vector. You know, you... God. This guy is so convoluted and messed up that now I'm trying to rebut him describing moving through a vector. No. You don't seem to understand at a basic level what you're even bullshitting about. You're talking about dimensions.
Wait,
Not directions.
Is it a dimension or is it a direction?
It's a fourth
Or is it
dimension he's
whatever
trying to sell.
Whatever he needs it to be.
Look, man, he's
Sorry.
in the BMW selling you a BMW. Next thing you know, he's trying to sell you a Ford. You don't know what the hell's going on.
Well,
Different
isn't that kind of
I
on
would-
purpose? Isn't that kind of on purpose? These words aren't defined because the moment you define them, it kind of destroys everything you say afterwards. If you're wanting to assert who is,
Direction,
relativity.
dimension, convolution, it's all the same thing.
How would the direction of time work with Google Maps?
Time isn't a direction. It's not a path. You can't travel it. What the hell? Am I living in La La
Yeah.
Land? Yep. Yes, you are, Nathan. Yeah, you're living in La La Land amongst a load of crazy people.
dimensional spaces. We best notice this when we consider what 2D objects might look like if they were to move around in 3D space.
If we think about 3D space, then. If you think about a two-dimensional item moving around in 3D space, you're just thinking about 3D space. But what you're now going to do in a really ham-handed way is say, now think about it from your 3D space in terms of a 4D space. Am I right? Let's see how well I've got on.
This is where we start to delve into the model. Let's begin by visualizing a standard 3D space. But because we want to eventually see all of space and time in one
Oh, do we? We eventually want to see this extra dimension. That's what we want, is it? So we're going to will a fourth dimension into existence then, by your own words. No, that doesn't make it physically real. I'm sorry. You know, I'm not going to be able to will a fourth dimension into physicality. Neither are you. Neither is Einstein. It only existed to begin with in the mind's eye of Einstein. But you've bought how it correlates nicely with something you haven't shown yet. Wow, they've really done a number on you, mate. Give him 1.3 million subscribers.
model. Let's cheat a little.
Cheat? Cheat? You see, here on Flat Earth Debate, we deal with physics. That's the study of the physical and natural world. We do it by looking at the empirical method of science that goes alongside it. Here, what we're going to do? Let's cheat a little bit. Why not?
Let's compress all of 3D reality as we know it into a flat, two-dimensional place.
Why? Okay, what we'll do is we'll get the crushers around your building and squash you completely flat. And then say, now imagine that you're 3D!
In this plane, let's make that our XY plane, which we will
It already was.
label space, which frees up the Z dimension for time.
Does it really? So what you're saying is, if I imagine that the height of my table doesn't exist, and that it's actually completely parallel with the ground with no height dimension at all, then I can then give it height and say it's time. Are you nuts, Astrum?
Hey, time is elevation.
Only if you live in the 2D realm, though.
In the
Sorry,
2D realm, just imagine that you've got a third dimension. You know, you were 2D and now imagining the 3D that you can only experience. Just do that again, one more dimension up, and you've got a time dimension, chocolate. It's that simple.
But time is elevation changes. That's what he's talking about. Time is elevation.
It sounds like it.
That's what, yeah.
In this model,
I'm
all
waiting for him
3D
to show
people
us
are
that magical time dilating squirrel.
This isn't as bad as the time dilating squirrel. It's almost as bad. He's dumbed down the nth dimensions explanation for it in a crap way. That's all he's done.
now just 2D. A 2D person could exist and live their life
Yeah, so that's where you're going wrong. Right, let's squash you flat and see how long you live. Oh, it's only conceptual. Yeah, like the fourth dimension that you're trying to reify from this crap. Yeah, the moment you squash me flat, I'm not living anymore. But what if I'm still alive in a two-dimensional... No, we're not cartoons. This is idiotic.
lives in the place marked space at the bottom.
A cardboard cutout. You could become a cardboard cutout. Remember, they used to have them when they used to have video stores years ago. They used to have cardboard cutouts of action heroes and actors. You could become one of those, and then leave time be your elevation.
Right, you know those policemen that they prop up outside big supermarkets to make you think there's a copper stood outside? Yeah, go and ask that copper cardboard cutout if he can imagine being third dimensional. And when he goes,
Yeah,
yeah, imagine it, I just can't get there, man, I'm flat.
You could just pretend you're Mario, and then, you know, while being Mario, try to think about your existence as the person playing Mario. Because that's what it sounds like he's saying.
bottom of our chart. However, by moving them up on the chart at a constant rate, they are also moving through time. Let's, for ease and convenience,
Literally, what Brian said was going to happen is what's happening. He's moving him up in elevation and saying that's akin to moving up through time. You couldn't make it up?
say that the top of our diagram
Go on.
I just said no. I just agreed you couldn't make it up.
Yeah, you couldn't make it up. It's just absurd. This is crap. This is what gets you 1.3 million subscribers. Because it doesn't matter how bloody wrong it is. It doesn't matter how absurd it is. Ultimately is adhering to the notion of Einstein's fourth dimensional space-time and saying it's true. So it doesn't matter how crap or wrong or nonsensical his claim that it's true is. It'll get promoted above all else because it's in line with the heliocentric religion of the Western world. Does it matter that it's completely garbage and it doesn't make any sense? No. At the end, his conclusion is space-time's real, therefore who cares?
is the
Isn't
future.
this isn't this a proper time for Michio to say, see the pants, leaps the logic?
Yeah, it's guesswork. Leaps of logic. Nobody in his field's dealing with the scientific method, the empirical method that deals with the physical and natural world, natural science. None of them are dealing with that. This is all guesswork. Just guesswork that's been given to him by people far smarter, in the case of Astrum, that he's tried to water down and done a really, really poor job of doing so. You know, there's nobody reasonably minded that's going to reify space-time from this description. It's just crap. In other words, I'm not criticising him as a flat earther for being wrong in his heliocentric nonsense. We can do that all day long. We're saying, poor show as a heliocentrist. I shouldn't be able to do a better job of reifying space-time and describing it. That shouldn't be the case when you've got 1.3 million subs. You should be right. You should understand your own religion. It's one thing for me to point out it's wrong, but it's another thing to have to correct you on how you don't understand it in the first place. To describe moving up through one axis in a third dimension as being time, this is utterly garbage. Give him 1.3 million subscribers. Give it 2.3 million views.
While the bottom is the past. So the higher up our 2D person goes in this...
Higher up? Sorry, I thought they were moving through time. Why is it now back to describing the second dimensional flat person that's been squashed moving up? I thought that up was now time. Don't seem to understand what you're talking about. It doesn't make any sense.
Diagram, the older they get. As we don't see...
The older they get? Sorry, how old has this pencil man got in the time you've been explaining it, moving him up through an axis? He didn't get any older. You didn't show any wrinkles. You just showed him moving up. Oh, thick as they come. Don't understand your own heliocentric nonsense. Get a grip, man.
To have a whole lot of control over our ability to travel through time.
Sorry, you think we're taking journeys through time now, do you, Dumbo? No. Nobody's travelling through time because time isn't something you can travel on. It's not a road. It's not an axis. It's not a dimension. And it definitely ain't a direction. Yeah, we haven't got DeLoreans. There are no time-travelling equipment.
It's only a matter of time before he, pardon the pun, before he inserts his time changing, because that's why he's trying to go with it with this X, Y, Z, with Z being time, is that time is going to change for the person who is experiencing the fourth dimension somehow when they raise an altitude. You know, so raising an elevation is a change in the rate of time, according to Einstein. Now, if you go up 50 foot
hold on,
above
let
where
Brian
you
get
are
to the
now-
end. No, that's correct. I see where he's convoluted it now. Well done, Brian. It's always nice to know why they've made such a cock up of it.
Yeah, no, I thought you kind of knew that, but no, that's what it is. That's what it is. It's like the whole point is that the further away you get from your globe out in altitude, then the faster time will move for you. So technically, you know, if you go off out into their heliocentric space for whatever amount of time, pardon the pun, you know, depending on how far away you are from the globe, when you come back, then people that
you
were the
come
same
back
age as
and you're
you
older
will
than your
not be
twin, right?
Yes.
Well, no, the person, you come back and they're older and you're younger. That's the way they try and explain it. But actually, if you look into it logically, it would work the other way. Logically, it would work kind of the other way. No, sorry, no, it would work that way. Sorry. So you come back and you're younger and they're older. That's the.
You know,
I want to second. I want to second what Brian says and enjoy the pun.
Yeah, indeed.
well, the whole thing about
Hold on, I think John wants to chime in. Go ahead.
well, the whole thing about that is when I used to think about when I first come to flat Earth, I would ask heliocentrists, like, if you believe that time is changing as you rise in altitude, then shouldn't the angles to celestial objects also have changed from that altitude? And they don't like discussing that.
I don't like this. You're absolutely correct, but this guy isn't doing that right. When Brian accurately describes how Einstein's describing this, right, moving up through an axis is actually moving up in one of the three dimensions that we do actually experience. What this guy's done is removed it and substituted it for time. So it's just wrong. It's just wrong within their own claim. It's wrong because we can debunk it, but you're getting ahead of the stupidity of the mentality of the videographer in this instance, if you follow my drift, John. Yes, you're right.
Let's
he's not
imagine
doing
for a
good
second
job.
that our two...
Sorry, go ahead.
I don't think he's doing a very good job at explaining this at all, or even trying to make it seem like reality at all.
We'll see where it goes.
2D person travels upwards at a constant rate, as if there is some consistent force or wind at play pushing them upwards towards the future.
But gravity is not a force. This guy's an idiot. He really has no idea. He's not obviously been to university and studied fourth dimensional space-time bending, the effects of the curvature of space-time in Einstein's rhetoric. He doesn't understand it. He's a high schooler that's been given this information from YouTube, presumably, and he just doesn't understand it.
Sadly,
Go on.
Yeah, Nathan, he exchanged the third with time. So he's still in 3 dimensions. He's not at all showing anything in 4 dimensions. He just replaced it with time.
Yeah, which is what I expect somebody who would then later go on to describe the force moving them through time. You're just like, oh, God, way to show how high school level your understanding of the force of gravity is. Yeah, gravity's not a force. Now, you can think of it as a force, dumb high school education in terms of gravity, but it isn't one. Yeah? To quote Professor Brian Cox, there isn't really a force of gravity at all, end quote.
Well, what I'd be focusing on would be not even the word force there, is that you go upward into the future. That would then mean that when I go into lower elevations, I'm going back into my past.
Yeah, back in time.
Back to the future.
So while I'm in a valley, I'm going back a few years. You know, I know that their calculations would be very tiny, but the point is that like he's mixing up future and past with time dilation. Not the same thing, even within that. It's a change in the rate of time within that paradigm, but it doesn't mean you're going into the future or into the past. Go on.
And now our guest singer and band, it's Huey Lewis and the News with Back in Time. I'm gonna go back in time. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, at least where we're going, we don't need roads.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's begging the question of, just one second, Nathan. You know when they say that we are seeing light from a star that exploded whatever amount of billion years ago, and we're only getting the light now. It's that kind of a thing. It's like that we're looking into the past.
To your eye.
Yeah, we're looking into the past. That's kind of where he's trying to take it, you know.
Cannot slow down time for ourselves simply through willpower, no matter how much we might want to do so. However, it is misleading to say that we can't change it at all.
It's a description. Time's a description. You're describing something. It's a concept. It's a convention that you can work within to describe things. Yeah, what do you mean change it? Your description of changing things in a physical sense is only true in the mathematics of Einstein's fourth dimensional space-time bending.
Well, what he's going to try to do is correlate an entropic effect and something affecting it with time. So you could do the same thing with gas behavior that he's getting ready to do with cesium clocks and say, well, gas expands at this rate because I put it in a container. I have stopped time.
The faster we travel in space, the slower we travel in time. This is one of the guiding principles of Einstein's relativity.
That doesn't make it in any way physical. Yeah, the mathematics of Einstein's conception. That's all this is.
This model can express this idea through the power of vectors.
Right, the idea. It can express the idea and describe vectors in maths. That's right. Now we're getting somewhere. At least he seems to understand it when parroting it off Wiki or wherever he's doing.
As our 2D person tries to move to their left or to their right, their vector of travel changes.
No, Einstein didn't describe it as a two-dimensional man moving through the third dimension in 3D space as being a time dimension. No, you've moved. You were doing well for about 10 seconds. Now you're irritating me again because you don't understand your own religious faith.
While travelling at a fixed rate, like a sail on a ship catching a breeze, we can only go as fast as the wind takes us, so the vector coming out from their front must always remain the same.
What? What kind of nonsense was that?
But this is what they're giving to the world, Nathan.
To travel the fastest through time,
That was-
our 2D person must orient his vector completely in the future direction or up.
Time isn't a direction, right? The arrow of time in terms of entropy is constant, right? It's only going in one direction if you want to reify that as an arrow or a vector. Yeah? Entropic effects will always take place. You always experience decay. Yeah? That idea, that description, that's another convention. Entropy. Yeah? Not science, just another description. But that doesn't give us a physical vector. It's just thick. It's just not irritating to anybody else. Yeah. I want to actually attack Einstein, not this crap that someone doesn't understand. I'm just saying, it started off well, and this is partially why I don't want to respond to tosspot YouTubers like this Astrum guy. Yeah, he's got 1.3 million subscribers. So if you want to take it on the validity scale of popularity, which we definitely don't adhere to here, subscribe today, by the way. Please hit the super chat and support my GoFundMe campaign. That's not what we adhere to. The point of dealing with Tyson or Thaler or Shuckle and Bottlencothen or whatever she's called is that they're delivering what could be considered a mainstream approach to the actual rhetoric of heliocentrism, as opposed to this. I don't want to spend half the show correcting him about how heliocentrism is actually described so that I can then debunk it.
It's one and the same. It's one and the same, Nathan. When you break this down, you educate your audience as to the foolishness and silliness. So then when we get one of the big hitters to say the same thing, they say, well, that's what that other joker said.
Yeah, I agree. But if you take down Tyson and Cox and all the big guys, you'll knock out all these little guys that are in the way.
Well, look, are you bowling or what? What do you mean?
I'm gonna get a drink.
Well,
What do you mean, Neil? I didn't get it either.
on.
I brushed past it because I thought I hadn't heard you correctly off my one speaker. Please support my GoFundMe campaign.
Well, this guy's 1.3 million subscribers, and he's pumping out nonsense. You know, I understand what he's trying to explain, but you can't go in the direction of the future. It's not a direction, because if you could go in the direction of the future, then that would mean contrapositive. You could go in the direction of the past. That would mean you could go back into the past.
And
But you
now our
can't go back to
special guest
yesterday.
band, Huey Lewis and the News, with Back in Time. Didn't we do this already? I think we just experienced a time loop. Could be a white hole spewing time.
Yeah, out backwards.
Yeah, spinning it out back, reintroducing it when we've already experienced it. Like in A Brief History of Time. Just another wanker talking about nonsense and inventing white holes.
Yeah, but we had the movie Star Trek go back in time to get a whale and bring it to the future so the planet wouldn't fall apart.
Upwards. However, if they are to travel any amount in either direction to their sides, they can only do so by pointing their vector away from their direction of travel.
How do I point my vector? Maybe you could explain that to me in response. Yeah, I haven't come up with any questions for you so far. How do I change my time vector? I'd like to know the answer to that, please. I mean, I feel like it's pointing the wrong direction at the moment, and I'd like to correct that with your help.
Well, is it pointing up or down?
Mine's definitely pointing up, Brian.
Well, that's in the right direction then.
It doesn't feel like it's the right direction. I need to reorientate the vector.
They have motion in the X direction now, but they have done so by reducing their motion in the Z direction.
Did I now? I reduced my Z vector with respect to the time vector. I see. It's as simple as that, eh?
Yeah,
They're
the
moving
time vector is the Z vector. coordinate.
Is that not height, Brian?
Elevation, yes, that's elevation.
Quick, Nathan, reduce your Z vector.
Inputting commands, Captain.
through space, but at the cost of moving a little slower through time.
Slower through time. So if I reorientate my time vector, I can slow down time, can I, Astrum? Yeah? If I say the words back to you that you've just said, do you appreciate how stupid they sound? Because you're postulating slowing down time, son. Yeah? Do you not realise how absurd that is? Yeah? Now maybe it's why we, the flat earthers, need to be ridiculed. So this tosspot can hear me and go, yeah, but it's a flat earther saying it. Therefore, all absurdity spewed out of my mouth can be accepted as true.
Taking this to its furthest extreme, our individual has completely flipped on their side and now only has motion in the direction of X and none in the direction of Z. They have velocity in space, but not time.
Wow. So this flat dude, this stickman, has effectively stopped time. Right? You think the arrow of entropy can be halted? No, absolutely not. See, that would involve being able or capable to achieve absolute zero. No, nothing will ever do that. You know, this fundamentally defies principles we understand in nature. So no, Astrum, absolutely not.
So I suppose this implies our vector is the speed of causality, or the speed of light.
There is no speed of light. What are you babbling about? Another Einsteinian concept that you've derived from the mind's eye of the mathematics? Based on heliocentric rhetoric? Definitely not. Go ahead, Brian. I know you want to get a word
Ludicrous
in.
speed.
Is light or causality now?
Either
So they
or,
just kind of
or
flip it,
unicorns, just
either-
whatever.
oh,
No
same difference?
consequences.
Oh, okay.
Just whatever you like.
checking, just checking.
Causality, light, time, just pick one out of a hat, Chocolate. What's your problem?
Car, elevator, cat. Yeah, it doesn't matter.
Exactly, could be anything. So long as I conclude that space-time's real at the end, it don't matter if it's unicorns, does it? Let's be honest. It doesn't matter how wrong or nonsensical is, so long as the conclusion's in line with the current rhetoric.
Well, just to add something to it, the whole speed of light claim, two-way speed of light claim, is all based on the average distance between a globe Earth and its heliocentric sun over a 12-month period. It's all based on Kepler's analemma. That's what it's all based on. That's its origins. And as I showed yesterday on the after show, and I can show them at any point, all the calculations all work back to exactly what the two-way speed of light claim is claimed to be, which is just over 671 million miles per hour. It's just an average calculation that Einstein went along with for his general relativity. It's even called Einstein's convention, because he knew it was a convention. He said he knew it, and he just went along with it anyway.
Indeed. Thank you, Brian.
If this is the speed we're talking about, then moving at low speeds through space would not have any noticeable difference in our speed through time. We'd have to go really fast before we started to notice anything.
Show us. Let's have a look. Show this so we can understand it by a physical demonstration.
The vector still mostly points upwards.
I haven't readdressed my vector. Doesn't feel right to me.
An interesting result of this model is that, from the 2D man's perspective, nothing has really changed. He has...
So what you're saying is you can describe all of these things occurring and have massive amounts of speed changes, but for this happy stickman, he doesn't even notice. So it's almost like, by saying this, when you describe a massive velocity in terms of the time vector, you can just tell me afterwards that I wouldn't even notice, right? Let's see.
Has his own view of what reality is. For him, the vector coming out of his chest is still time. The dimensions of the plane he's lying flat on is his space.
I see. Where's my time arrow? I don't see it coming out of my chest.
To him, it's the rest of the universe that's gone a little weird, but he himself is perfectly normal.
Really? Show me. When do we experience this? Is it only the 2D stickman in this reified convention about a model that Einstein derived from a fourth dimension that doesn't exist? That we have the smiling face and the arrow coming out of our chest? No way in any way physically experienceable. Oh, I'm sure that's because we don't experience the fourth dimension. It's like if we were 2D trying to experience the 3D, right? Oh man, I'm way ahead of you, aren't I?
Is he
However,
placing
once
us at sea level?
Again?
Is he placing us at 0? That'd be sea level.
I doubt we can raise anything above that, Brian. I mean, obviously, with elevation being time and all.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. We're stuck at 0 then.
Did he say the results of the model? Isn't the model, shouldn't the model be the result of reality? Why are you getting results from a model that you created?
Yeah, I should have really. I did. Yes, absolutely. Well spotted. It's a reification fallacy on its face, is what Chocolate's trying to say. And he's absolutely correct. He's saying, why is the model dictating what reality does, as opposed to models in their useful nature being a representation of what you've experienced in the best way you can describe it physically on a small scale, for example? Well, that's you taking something that you've seen, like a train, and making a small version of it, a model. Well, you don't say, I've designed this train to look like, I don't know, a giant cylinder, like a silo on its side. And that's my train. And therefore, trains are shaped like that, because that's what the model dictates. No, it doesn't work like that. It's a reification fallacy. The train in your model isn't the reality.
That's funny because my brother, sorry, Brian, my brother was asking why can't they make a small scale model of a heliocentric sun and moon with little planets orbiting around it. Thought that was interesting.
They did.
It just doesn't
Then
work.
what happened?
It just doesn't work.
Yeah, look at it. I think it was the Discovery Channel did it. I might have it in my videos. I'll share to you later. They did all that. They placed the sun and all the Earth, the globe Earth, the moon, everything, all at its distances from each other.
Is that the one
In
where
the
they
desert.
did it in the desert? Yeah, I did
in the
see
desert.
that one.
Yeah.
I remember that crap.
Right. But a lot of the evolution, in the true sense of the word, of this model has come from necessity. In other words, the predictions that the model is supposed to offer. In other words, if you see the motion of the stars and go, right, how do they relate to being little cogs in a model? And you try and line up a load of cogs on the ground in the model and say, right, based on how we wind this forward in time, these lights will appear at this point in the sky at this time, based on our convention of time. So what we describe as being a 3-month period will be how long elapses between these lights appear from where they are now to where they will be based on our prediction in the model. So you rewind forward the model and it shows them in that position. You go, great. Okay. So let's wait 3 months. So you do. You look up at the sky and you go, Kepler! Doesn't match! And he goes, well, let me just think about this for a minute. And from there, you introduce elliptical orbits. Or you give a different scale, or you do whatever is necessary to alter the model to try and give, in this case, the church, a better idea about the predictive capabilities of the sky clock. Why? Well, because they needed to know when Easter was. So people like Kepler come up with models to tell them, with predictive capabilities of where the lights will be. And when they don't match, you get another evolution of the heliocentric nonsense. And every time it's only being done to give, in this case, like I say, the church, a better predictive capability for a particular event, Easter. Well, that's it. That doesn't mean we're actually moving around the sun. Doesn't mean we're actually moving in elliptical orbits just because the predictions didn't work. It doesn't mean any of that.
Sorry, the wakey interview, the lady said, just change the model if it don't work. Just throw it out. We'll make a brand new one.
Well, Kepler had to create the elliptical orbit because he had to place the globe Earth at 2 opposite distances from the sun, the heliocentric sun, over the 12-month period of a year. So that's what he had to have. He had to, whether the sun makes an ellipse or not, I don't know, but he had to make the globe Earth do an elliptical orbit, an offset elliptical orbit. So it would be 3 million miles closer on the December 21st, around that time, around early January, and 3 million miles further around late June, early July. But if you look at the Gleason's map, just as a reference, now I can't use it as proof, but the Gleason's map shows that on the 21st of June, which is the northern solstice, summer solstice, it shows that the sun's light covers a greater surface area than on the 21st of December, which is completely in opposition to what Kepler claimed, which was that the globe Earth is further from its heliocentric sun in around the 21st of June. I know he went. I think they say 4th of July or whatever. But the point is that if you were closer to the heliocentric sun, then the sun's light. I know it's crazy, but the sun's light would cover. This is stupid. What am I even saying? Because their sun is huge, so at all times it would be covering all one side of it. The whole thing is convoluted. Don't mind me. I forget it. Scrap it all. It's all nonsense.
Indeed. Right, I'm going to do one last shout out to my GoFundMe campaign that I've just set up. So this is a campaign to hopefully replace the 13-year-old amps that I've got currently running the show, as they're constantly breaking down, and I'm sick of spending £500 or maybe even more a time at trying to repair them. So I'm just going to replace them with something for about the same cost as each repair is costing, or there or thereabouts. So I'm going to buy some cheap and cheerful studio amps and chuck them in their place. So ideally I'd replace all three, which is why I'm asking for about £1,500 in this GoFundMe campaign. Ideally, I need to get to about 500 quid pretty quickly, so I can just replace the one that's not working almost straight away, and then I can actually hear the show properly, which would be wonderful. But hopefully one of my moderators will stick a link to this GoFundMe campaign in the live stream, and I will stick a link to it underneath the show once the live stream's ended. But if you did want to donate to the campaign, just make sure you slide the tip amount down to 0 after you've put the amount that you want to contribute. So stick the amount in and then just slide it down to 0. Obviously, thanks in advance to all of you. Oh, it won't let me do it for some reason. Let's try that once more. There we go. So yeah, they do take a cut anyway, so there's no point giving them an extra tip in my opinion. For future reference, I keep saying this. I think it's the second time I've done this and just automatically gone to GoFundMe when somebody suggested that they're not exactly the greatest of person to use for fundraising. So if you are that person, I am so sorry. Please get in touch. Let me know what the alternative is so I don't do this for a third time. Anyway, there's a brief description in there of why I'm e-begging for new amplifiers, given how old they are and the fact that one of them's now broken and one of them's currently in repair. But if you don't obviously want to support financially, that's obviously fine. Just click the share button in the campaign and share it on Facebook and Twitter. It does have a massive impact and has done in the past in terms of raising funds for me to keep this show on the road, that show being Flat Earth Debate. So, with that shameless plug for my e-begging campaign, I'm going to say first and foremost, if you are watching this on either Nathan Oakley 1980 or Nathan Oakley premiering streams, then stay tuned, as there will be an after show to follow. Unfortunately, though, if you are watching this live, this is where we bid you farewell. So another massive thank you to all of you. Smash the super chat, liked, commented, shared, subscribed, joined as a Nathan Oakley 1980 channel member, smashed my GoFundMe campaign link, shared it, hopefully contributed, and all that good stuff. And another massive thank you to today's panel for making the live show possible. Stay tuned if you're watching on an after show. I've been Nathan Oakley, and I will see you all in the next video.
What a lovely day!
Well, that's what
Gonna
they do.
go
They
back
just scrap
in
out.
time.
You know, Neil deGrasse can say
Sorry,
things like the magic speed, and people are blown away by it. Wow. Yeah. Magic speed.
I don't know.
I think we're
Next
throwing.
question.
I think we're throwing an extra layer of shit on these guys. Some of these YouTubers we're reviewing that we don't need to, because I think we're expecting them to understand exactly what it is they're saying. They don't have to. They're not required to. They've already been given a cool story, and their only job is to reiterate that story to everyone else, all of their followers, and whoever will be willing to listen. How many of this guy's 1.3 million viewers do you think sat there and understood what he was saying, or even knows that that's what their heliocentric model even claims in the beginning, in the first place? They don't
You got a
care.
point.
They don't need to understand his shit. They just need to tell everybody a cool campfire story. That's it.
That's funny because in chat the guy was saying, in other words, accusing us of why you want to take away space. It's cool. Don't you want the truth?
We don't want to take away space in the same way we don't want to take away Narnia. But people who have that as their Western world belief don't realise it's a belief and want to foist it on anybody that doesn't agree with them, like us. Like him asking, why do you want to take away space? It's like, if you have it, it's yours. But what you're actually saying is, why are you challenging my cognition and my understanding of how my world works? Like, have some self-confidence, you know, have some assurance in your own mental being. Just
Nathan, can you play the video in Master D of Michio Kaku so I could comment on this very subject?
I find that exactly right. When they're saying, why are you trying to...
You have a theory, you make more observations, and it's a very, very tedious process. Wrong. Nobody that I know of in my field uses the so-called scientific method. In our field, it's by the seat of your pants. It's leaps of logic. It's guesswork. It's guesswork. It's guesswork.
So what you did today was take a video, and I think Chocolate said it really good, that they're just repeating stuff they were told. But now we go to one of their top people, and he tells you how they got there. Leaps of logic, guesswork, seat of the pants. We're helping these people realize all it is a cool story that they make up in their minds, their imagination. The guy used imagination so many times in this video, and then he had to get rid of the Z-axis for what it really is, replace it with the 4D that doesn't exist, and then try to prove his 4D with just 3 axis points. I mean, the whole thing was a failure.
Hey, I never heard that. He kind of disses the scientific method. He says the so-called scientific method. Oh, it only proves things, right? With empiricism, correct? But he says the so-called.
It's like, was it TVR? Do you remember TVR, Brian? The car company. Oh, we don't use so-called ABS.
Yeah.
We don't use so-called ABS. Very heavy. Very complicated. So-called OBS on cars.
But him saying we don't use in my field, we don't use the so-called scientific method. He's kind of, obviously he's admitting we don't use the actual, we're not science, but he's also trying to say kind of, well, there might be kind of other ways of finding stuff out. It's like, not empirically, pal.
I hear it like a diss to the scientific method because it comes against everything that they stand for.
It just means we don't use the so-called scientific method. We use the, you know, never labelled pseudoscience method and call it science.
He reorients himself. It is clear that the rest of the universe has moved on without him. This is clearer if we add a second 2D person. Initially, both of our individuals do not move in space. All of their vector is pointing in the direction of time.
Oh man, this is so frustrating listening to this guy change the height axis into time. Now he's got 2 stickmen on their back with 2 arrows coming out like penises. I kid you not.
Nothing that strange seems to happen so far. However, if our stickman on the right turns and vectors at near the speed of light for a bit, then reorients himself.
Vectors at near the speed of light. Show me. This isn't showing me that.
While the second 2D man on the left...
It's not even a model. This is nonsense because it doesn't comport with Einstein's 4th dimensional space-time. This is not how
They
it's
had
ever
to
depicted.
improvise a bit.
So again,
I
Owen?
think. Well, it's just a mind experiment, and based on a lot of pre-assumptions of how these things work, and probably some improvisations. I mean, nothing of it is actually tested, so they're a little bit more liberal in that field in getting creative with the construction. Like, oh, some elements might be slightly different in a way, and nobody really cares, right? So people do this all the time in astrophysics and all that.
F just stays where he is, it becomes clear that our 2D men have not moved at the same rate through time. Assuming that our two stick men can somehow still see each other, let's imagine that they somehow project an image of themselves onto the other person's space plane. They immediately notice that there is a difference in age.
Oh, right, like in what was that famous spacey movie where he sees himself at the end? Oh, what's it called? We talk about
Interstellar.
Interstellar. Oh, just like in Interstellar. Right.
The one who travelled at the speed of light did not advance so quickly through time as the other, who remained stationary, and so...
Oh, so basically, the guy who travelled away is like basically a bit younger then.
is younger.
Wow! Oh man, it's like amazing, like how I can keep up with your complete nonsense.
But why do we find this model so compelling? Well...
Compelling? No, we would want to see physical evidence of it. You know, as
It's
opposed
fantastical.
Because you created it?
It's compelling because it's so fantastical, right? It's very, wow, so amazing and
You know, he's cut to the, Arwen, you can't see this. He's now cut to the inside cockpit view of an X-Wing. That's what he's cut to.
Right.
It is because of what those projections would look like during...
Projections? Sorry, what projections? It's the first time you've used that word.
Changes in direction.
Right, like a change in vector. Yeah, I'm gonna need 3 dimensions to do that. You know, I mean, being a stickman's fun and all.
From the point of view of the first stickman, initially the projection of their friend seems fairly normal. However, as they start travelling very quickly in space, and their vector oriented in a direction away from time...
How did we do that then? How did I change my orientation away from the vector of time? How did this 2-dimensional stickman do it? He's not doing anything. You've just got two stickmen on screen. You're not even showing it in the diagram anymore. You're getting very lazy with your rubbish explanation, Astrum. You know, I'm not seeing any of this. I just see 2 stickmen.
A 2D shape reveals its inherent flatness. And from a face-on perspective, it goes from this to this.
Does it?
The speedily travelling stickman appears to flatten, with an effect that's more pronounced the faster they go.
Really? Show us. Show us your stickman in 2 dimensions, disappearing as he rotates through a first dimension and disappears up his own arse. Can you show us that?
And the flattening takes place in the direction of their travel. The stickman who remains stationary might wonder at the strange change that is occurring to their friend, never comprehending that it represents a reorientation of a 2D figure in 3D space.
Like in Time Cop. Yeah, I get you.
Now, what captures my imagination about this is that...
I don't want my captured imagination to have anything further than a physical demonstration of this actually occurring, beyond your 2D stickmen, that haven't got a 3rd dimension because they're going to be rising up through it as time. You know, I don't want to fantasize about this anymore. In fact, I stepped away from it quite some number of years ago.
That this same thing happens in real life.
Nathan.
Does it? Oh, he's getting to the climax, Brian. That nonsense actually happens in real life.
Yes. Don't you know, Narnia is just like the real world.
Yeah, Brian.
Yeah, I was just going to say, you know that quote that they say is from Nikola Tesla, where he talks about how modern day scientists just get lost in equation after equation, never actually experimenting and proving any of what they say, blah, blah, blah. Even though that's not 100%, even though, like, I know they say that Tesla said that, I don't know whether he said anything, but the point is that whoever said it, they were making a point that, yeah, these people are lost in equations. And that's what they've created modern day, what the, you know, is created off of equations. Isn't it? The majority of
that for
modern... Sorry?
Want me to quote that for you?
Yeah,
Nikola Tesla.
Right,
Yeah, it's
I'll
supposed to
play
be.
I'll
I
play
don't know
Michio
what.
Kaku first, then you can quote Tesla.
Science, we always say that you make observations, you have a theory, you go make more observations, and it's a very, very tedious process. Wrong. Nobody that I know of in my field uses the so-called scientific method. In our field, it's by the seat of your pants. It's leaps of logic. It's guesswork. It's guesswork. It's guesswork.
Yeah, chocolate.
Nikola Tesla, quote, today's scientists have substituted mathematics for experiments, and they wander off through equation after equation and eventually build a structure which has no relation to reality. End quote.
Perfect.
According to Einstein's theories of relativity, objects traveling at great speeds in 3D space would appear from an external observer to flatten in the direction of their travel.
Objects travelling in 3D space at a great speed will appear to flatten. So all you've got to do is show something moving at a high speed in a three-dimensional world that we do experience and show us it flattening. When's that ever going to be shown?
Yeah, but it
That's
only
where they're
happens in
so-
Narnia. Don't you get it? Only in Narnia does that happen.
No, this is his. No, this is his bit. You missed the bit at the beginning of this section, Arwin, where he said, "No, this is how it translates to physical reality."
And that's why they say that the Earth is traveling upwards, that inertial vector. The flat Earth
But he
is
didn't
traveling
actually
upwards.
back that statement. Sorry.
No, this is it. This is it being backed. You're missing my point. My point is, he said, "Right, here's how it translates to reality." Now, this is what he's saying about that, Arwin. You follow? I'm not going to rewind it, but this is his justification for how it relates to reality.
All right. Yeah,
This
it's
squish-
a bit annoying that I can't see it because
My
there's
bad.
no video here.
Okay, well, you see it on the re-up.
Effect happens exactly in line with this model and is to do with time dilation. However,
Sorry, time doesn't dilate. Maybe look up what the word means. Look up what dilation is. Then show me time. Yeah, you won't do that. Then show me time dilating. Yeah? Do you know what it means? Do you know what the word means? Or have you just heard it spouted from somebody smarter than you and assumed it's correct so you can repeat it? Time does not dilate. You don't know what the word means.
from the person who's traveling's perspective, they do not flatten, but it is the rest of the universe that warps.
It is not you that flattens, but the world around you. Yeah, you sound like a wanker.
I talk about this in greater depth in another video of mine, where we can see the effects of spatial warping in a computer model.
Really? You see, that would be less than adequate when you're saying this is how it translates to physical reality. You know, referring yourself in a video with a computer demonstration of warping isn't time dilating. This isn't a demonstration of how it relates to physicality. Total fail.
Spaghettification?
From their
Yeah, but
perspective,
he could
everything which
calculate it. He could calculate it on his computer in a model. That means physical evidence, right?
Let me restructure what he meant. In a future video, you can go into my deep imagination where I make up the fourth dimension. I can't prove anything of it, but man, check it out.
What an outrage. The reason I'm annoyed is because he's just given this as his justification for how it relates to physicality.
stretch at the edges of their vision, while their destination would seem further away, which is again what this model would predict. The only difference is that in this model we're just exploring a 2D object stretching, so the stretch is only in one direction, while in real life it's 3D, which means it stretches in two
gave it away.
directions instead.
Say again, Brian.
He gave it away. He gave his whole game away when he said, when we look at what this model would predict. That says it
And
all.
then juxtapose that with in real life.
Yeah.
Oh, so
yeah.
what you're talking about is not real life? Thanks, buddy.
Yeah, it's the whole, my model predicts rubbish. That's what it is. My model predicts. So what this model would predict, well, how does that have any relation to reality? It doesn't.
Okay.
Your
but-
model doesn't have a relation to reality. It's based on leaps of logic, mathematics, and a lot of imagination.
Right, as opposed to the scientific method, right, that they don't adhere to, as per Michio Kaku's last statement. Okay, 10 points to anyone who can say what a prediction in science is labelled as.
Hypotheses.
Hypothesis.
Hypothesis. Right. So your models aren't predictions in science. Science has empirical methodology attached to hypothesis-based experimentation. What's a hypothesis? It's a scientific prediction. It predicts your supposed cause of a phenomenon you're studying, something that occurred in nature. Your phenomena being A in the logic. So if A, that's the variation of your supposition, then B, that's the phenomena you want to induce, the thing you're studying, the phenomena, the effect you want to know the cause of. So if A, then B. If my supposition is true, B will be the outcome, the phenomena I'm studying. Alongside it comes a null hypothesis, which is if I vary that which I assume causes the effect, it will not cause the effect, shortened to if A, not B. So a supposition of a cause and effect relationship in science, aka a scientific prediction, is a hypothesis. If A, then B, or if A, not B. Not yet validated. So it doesn't explain anything, because you can't have two statements that are the opposite of each other stand true at the same time. A can't both cause B and not cause B. Therefore, you vary it to see if it does cause it or not. And when you do, you have an empirical outcome. It either varied and caused your outcome that you were predicting. That's the ideal. You validate the alternative. That's to say you predicted correctly and it caused the effect. Well, then your A statement, A causes B, is true. And your B statement, your null, isn't. A did not cause B is obviously not true if you've just caused it by varying A. So that means you've only got one outcome at the end of the process. Once you validate your scientific prediction. This model garbage. Models don't predict what happens in reality. Yeah? Like the train example. You go away from a train station with a vague recollection of what a train looks like. So you go and make a model. Well, your model has got a cylinder train that doesn't fit through any of the tunnels. So you start telling the people around you that that's what trains are, because that's what your model predicted. Utter nonsense. Now, that's not science. It's not going to offer anything useful. It just allows you to fantasize in La La Land about two-dimensional men traveling with penis vectors coming out of them. And then say how in real world we experience 3 dimensions. And like the 2D guy could travel through a 3rd dimension that's actually time, you're in 3 dimensions traveling through a 4th dimension that's time. No, my friend. Time's not a dimension.
And that's what it's all about, fantasizing.
Well, he said it when he said in real life it's 3D. Well, shouldn't real life be 4D?
Why were we looking at the 2D stickmen then?
But that is what you might expect as you turn away from our conventional 3 dimensions and start.
Impossible. I'm never going to turn away from conventions that we experience because we exist within them. Yeah, I will always be experiencing length and breadth and depth. So what am I going to do? Turn away from them? Point my penis vector in the direction of time and hopefully my height will disappear?
Orienting yourself away from time. But if
no, that can't be done. Idiot.
This is correct. So
No. This statement of nonsense is correct. No, it is not. No, I'm not going to reorientate myself in a time vector.
But why does it matter?
Because you're saying it, making it absurd. Because you've got a vague idea about what Einstein said about a 4th dimensional space-time, and then dumbed it down to the point where you think your audience will understand a stickman having a 3rd dimension that he couldn't experience. So therefore us in 3 dimensions have a 4th dimension that we can't experience. Therefore it's real. Because it's a really good idea that I haven't shown you, and it's obviously directly correlated with reality. Why? Well, because I've got a computer model in a different video. I think that was a pretty succinct summary of what he said during the ad break.
Truly a direction, then it deepens our understanding of the universe. It also raises more questions.
Didn't deepen our understanding of anything. Deepen our understanding of the universe. Shows a Hubble image.
More questions.
But deepens our understanding of his fantasy approach that he never proved.
What is the force that pushes us ever forward in time?
Definitely not gravity, which is what you're reifying in this instance. You're reifying 4th dimensional space-time bending as a effect of the uneven distribution of mass described in pseudo-Riemannian force space-time devised by Einstein. That's what you're describing. It's got sod all to do with reality, doesn't help us understand anything, merely a reification fallacy based on a religious belief. Go ahead, Arwen.
Yeah, but now he reintroduced a force in pseudo-Riemannian force space. So there's now, it's not gravity, right? Because gravity isn't a force, but in pseudo-Riemannian force space, time space bending thingy, apparently there's a force now pushing against time.
Yes, he doesn't.
But before he said
What he's doing is
hold on, he said it raises
just
questions.
Arwen wasn't Aldan, Brian. Neil, you weren't here, I think, Arwen. You joined a bit later, but we did cover that. So basically, what he's exposing is his high school understanding of gravity as a force, and then after watching a few YouTube videos about what Einstein says about gravity, he's juxtaposed or reintroduced this force notion that he was taught in high school into the fourth dimensional space-time concept that is bastardized into two-dimensional, that can't be experienced as three-dimensional, but three-dimensional still exists, therefore three-dimensional, but plus fourth-dimensional, which you can't experience. Yeah? He's taken that and introduced a force to it. Oh my God, way to show your GCSE level understanding of gravity.
Yeah, I was going to say,
plus-
like,
plus
I
this-
bet his
this is the
teachers did
same-
not greenlight that. He did not discuss this with his teachers about that. Because they would say,
Plus
like, no,
Arwen.
no, there's no force there. No.
Plus Arwen, this is the same guy that earlier in this video just interchanged the words light and causality. Like it was like it's nothing. Like it was the same word. So, you know, light, causality, dog, cat, purple. Same difference, according to this guy.
Why does it seem that we can never move against it? Although in this model there is no reason why a vector could not point downwards, in real life that doesn't seem to ever happen. This model...
What? In this model, there's never a vector that points downwards. Gravity...
Yeah, problematic.
Gravity is described as a downward vector 9.8 meters per second. What in unholy hell is he babbling about?
But he's just sharing how another thing, right? Just like, oh, look at this thing expanding. Yeah, but it's in 2D. We can't get it to work in 3D. And here's another thing. Oh, look, there's another little thing. Oh, yeah, we can't get it to work.
He said there was no down vector.
Every time we compare it to reality, it doesn't really work, but we're almost there.
No, he said there was no down vector. What's he babbling about?
It also answers the question of, if time is a direction, what is our shape in time?
Begging the question, Fallacy, if time is a vector, you mean a dimension?
There's no down vector in Einsteinian.
No, he's just dumb. You're right. Yeah, might as well reiterate. Go ahead, Brian. I don't know why I'm cutting you off. Go ahead.
Yeah, there's no down vector in Einsteinian general relativity. There is none. His equivalence principle only speaks about an up vector of the Earth, not of. There's no down. There's no weight. So there's no mass attracting mass. He only accounts for one mass at a time within his field equations. So there's no mass attracting mass. There's no weight. There's no reason for anything to go down.
Right. It sounds like he's just sandboxing this pseudo-Riemannian force space. He's just sandboxing it. He doesn't have any clue as to how that's supposed to actually work. It really sounds like he's improvising.
Yeah, he doesn't understand what he's talking about.
Does part of us protrude into the past or into the future? According to this model, that does not happen. We are flat pancakes in the fourth dimension. Pennies.
There you go, heliocentrists. I mean, let's just take that at face value. You're all flat pancakes in the fourth dimension. Obviously, you bunch of dumb globe-believing idiots. That's the kind of nonsense you'll put out to the public, 1.3 million of them, with a stick man with a smiling face on screen when you say it. It's a bloody embarrassment.
That look round when you look at us head on, but revealing our thinness when we turn away from you.
Yeah, ladies, that's all you need. You just need to consider yourself in a two-dimensional stick-like form, being viewed through the three-dimensional, curving space-time of Einsteinian rhetoric, and you'll disappear up your own arsehole.
That's a strange thought, but it may just be true. This might explain why we are unable to see through time.
Because time's not a pair of binoculars. Yeah, you might believe your telescope lets you see through time, but it isn't. Time's not a dimension. Time's not a vector. Time's not a bunny rabbit.
Nathan,
you gotta love the disclaimer, though.
Yeah, that's
this could be a strange thought, but it could be true. They all have their little disclaimers, man. They have to
It can
put them
be
in there.
chocolate could be a thin, delicious crepe if you'd like.
But isn't time just a medium? I mean, come on.
Look, pancake, shut up.
No, it's a
just-
direction and a dimension, Arwen.
You're just a
Hold on
pancake
a
in all of this,
second.
Arwen.
If
Just
you're
step
looking
off.
through it, then it has to be a medium, right?
Well, how can you be a flat stick man in an asymptotically flat space-time?
Shrove Tuesday here. Pancake day.
So you'd just be a line in an asymptotic. He's just wrong about that.
don't extend enough in that direction for it to be visible. Your form might be quite different than you first thought.
Like I say, ladies, yeah, you're feeling the pounds of Christmas still on you. Just need to reify yourself in fourth dimensional space-time bending. Your form might be very different.
Of course, this model is just a theory of ours. Although
And it's all just a theory, just a game theory. No, you're basing your physical reality on this. Yeah? This isn't film theory or game theory. It's not a
Maybe
theory.
you should have started the video with that.
But that's just a theory. A pseudoscience Einstein theory. It's not a theory. In science, theories come after experimentation, which come after scientific prediction, that's hypothesis, which come after you looking at something happening in nature and going, wow, I wonder what caused that.
we have tried to base it on scientific observations and
Oh, what a wanker. Scientific observations? No. Observation of natural phenomena, followed by scientific prediction, that's hypothesis, followed by the actualization of the hypothesis, that's the experiment, followed by theory. Right? There was no science in this horseshit. How dare you?
and conventional theory.
Not theory either. Well, he's going to get my blood boiling real quick right at the end of his video.
What do you think?
I think you're an idiot.
Does this model help you make sense of time?
No, because you've described it as a pathway, as a penis, as a vector, as a direction. Even though Einstein's describing it as a dimension, you don't understand Einstein's nonsense. You've also described it as a force, demonstrating your lack of higher education.
Time as a fourth dimension. Please leave your ideas in the comments below on the nature of time.
And if you're watching this on Nathan Oakley 1980 channel, be sure to go and check out Astrum's video. Leave him a thumbs up and say, hey, I got here from Nathan Oakley 1980 responding to your video. Love your work.
What it might
Do we?
actually be.
What's that, Neil?
That's good. Oh, go on,
I
Neil.
said, do we?
The only thing this video left me was hungry for some thin pancakes.
Well, this is a load of crap.
You cannibal.
Instead. I hope to explore more strange concepts like this in a new series called
For strange concepts? What? You've just told us this is our world. Strange concepts? Ugh. Try better at selling, right? Don't tell somebody after you've sold it at them as a rhetoric, as a worldview, that it's a strange concept. No way to undersell.
The Unseen World,
I
where
think,
I want to
Nathan,
explore
Nathan, I think that as he was trying to
forgot
explain it,
that
he
it's 30
basically
millimeters old.
snapped
Hold on
out
a
of
second,
his
you got
own
someone hot
spell.
micing over you. Rob the truth. Did you want to add something?
Hello?
You got someone hot micing over you. Go ahead, Rob.
Oh, I think they forgot to put in that he's 30 millimeters old, too.
30 millimeters high. Oh, old. Yeah. You forgot to add that. Go ahead, Darwin.
Yeah,
I was
old.
just it sounded like he was talking, and then suddenly he had a moment of consciousness where he basically started to realize that what he was saying was just complete bullshit. That's what it felt like. Like he was into it, and then he snapped out of it like, wait, this is really weird what I just said.
Yeah, let's just have a listen to that again, Darwin. You might be right. I didn't get that from it, but you might be right. Let's have a listen.
That's why I pointed it out. He said with the disclaimer. this might sound strange, but
and scientific observations and conventional theory. But what do you think? Does this model help you make sense of time as a fourth dimension? Please leave your ideas in the comments below on the nature of time.
Okay, so it's this next statement, right?
And what it might actually be instead. I hope to explore more strange concepts like this in a new series called The Unseen World, where I want to explore the shape of reality around us.
That's a contradiction in terms. this strange concept but explore the reality? Does he not understand the juxtaposition between those two things?
He's gonna explore. See,
Shape.
Arwen got it right. Arwen said he snapped out of it.
Shape of
Then
reality.
he goes back into it where he says he's gonna explore the unseen world and discover realities in it. Well, if it's unseen, how are you going to discover it?
While it's normally invisible to us, the shape and dimensions of the universe can explain why things are the way they are.
Let me get it straight. The shape of the world and the shape of the universe is going to explain how the world is.
No. That it's normally invisible to us, but in my mind, I will reify it and explain it to you.
Yeah, that's the part you got to focus on right there. He said it's invisible to us, but the shape will help us know what the world is. The shape that we can't see because it's invisible to us. But yeah, don't worry about that.
I'm
Don't get hung
excited
up on
to explore
details.
it with you. If you are interested in it, let me know.
Right, you just
I'm
have
very
to
pleased to
imagine
finally
you're
show
a
you
pan-
something
in
that's
this
been in the
universe,
works
you're
for
a
a while.
pancake, right? You're a
I've been working-
pancake, and that means that it's a globe, because when you pull a pancake into 3D, then it becomes a globe, right? It all makes sense.
Dozens
I
of
like
facts
that,
about the
Arwen.
different celestial bodies
think-
found there. And what I actually love most about the book is the print quality combined with the images. Somehow these images just look so good when printed out compared to seeing them on a computer screen.
These heliocentric bullshit pictures look much better in a book than on the telly. Oh, really? That's so nice. You peddle this horse shit. This is what he's punting with his video.
I spent hours finding the very best images to include,
ARM.
and I'm very proud of the finished product. The initial sale is a limited edition of only 175 books, so
You too can buy this bullshit about what I believe the CGI representations of the planets and worlds that I think orbit around the sun are like in print for just the moderate price
it's
of...
really while stocks last. And they will include a signed card from me and a serial showing your unique number.
How much for one without the signature?
I really expect these to go fast, so don't
Me too.
delay and check my
Yeah,
store link
you know
below.
what's
What
wrong
an
with it?
outrage. It's absolutely disgusting, right? Trying to get the money out of this endeavour. I mean, it's just an outrage. I mean, on a completely different note, it'd be really wonderful if you could all support my GoFundMe campaign. The link is in the info box below.
Nathan,
Go ahead.
do you have time? If I find a tiny clip, I'm trying to find a way to share it, but I can't share it. So I'm gonna have to do a screen record. If I leave for a few minutes, you're not gonna shut down the show now, right? If I come back and maybe you can play it.
And with that, I'll say a huge, massive, enormous
Yes.
thank you. No, I'm only joking. Yeah, you go ahead. I'll still be here.
All right, cool. I'll be right back.
You know what's wrong?
Go on, Brian.
I just want to say very quickly. You know what's wrong? They're hung up in the 90. All of Einstein, everything he's pointing out there is all about 90 degrees. Because it's all Cartesian. So they're hung up in the 90. That's what's wrong with them. Don't get hung up in the 90.
Right.
Well, you left the show feeling hungry for pancakes, but then he wants to sell you a book that eventually makes you feel like you're a pancake.
I don't
mean,
mind. I don't mind him trying to flog it. I mean, you know, to be fair, we've had a whole live show of content from his hard work in this regard, and I say this with all sincerity. You know, as a YouTuber, you might. I know you guys laugh along when I share the links, and ultimately, it's not. It's a far from selfless endeavor because I want them to reciprocate, don't I? But by the same token, I want them to reciprocate by paying it forward after I've done it. You know what I mean? I'm sharing their show and actually encouraging people to go and like it and comment on it, helping them in the algorithm, expanding their, you know, YouTube-ness or whatever you want to describe it as. So from that perspective, it's like, no, I do actually mean it when I say go over and check his video out and I'll share the link. It'd be nice if I got the same in return. I very rarely do.
Well, with videos like this, we
Thanks
want
for
people
watching.
to check it out.
I hope you learned
because
something.
It will
Sorry.
No, I was saying with videos like these, we want people to go check it out because it shows the nonsense of the heliocentric claims.
Yeah, but thank you to Astrum. So yeah, like I have done in the past, I'll stick a link when it's going up, and yeah, I'll continue to do so. But you know, as much as we're disagreeing, and you were like, I can't remember who it was that said it in the live show, but words to the effect of, you know, you're not actually encouraging them to go over and subscribe. It's like, well, I can't remember what you said, but no, I am. You know, same when I talk about Simon Dan or someone. As a YouTuber, I do actually wish them every success. We're all in the same boat in that regard, right?
I do have a problem with debunking like the random moron that makes a video on space-time, though, because that's what heliocentrists do to flat earthers, is they find the dumbest flat earther they can, debunk his video, and then, you know, say that they've debunked flat earth.
Yeah, that's a much better way of putting it. It is akin to Simon Dan going out and finding totally unknown flat earther with a gate and then going viral with it. Yeah, exactly. So why would we be swimming around in this dirty, horrible pond with the scum that floats when you can go out of the pond and up to the palace? That seems like a much more sensible path than dealing with people where we're having to spend, like I said in the live show, spend half the time correcting how he doesn't understand his own claim. You know, having to, the most egregious part being him describing it as a force moving in through time. It's like, yeah, that is useful in a way because it shows, look, when you don't know or haven't been told in no uncertain terms, as you would have been if you'd gone through the higher education process in terms of gravity, that gravity is not a force. So he's going to mentally incorporate it in as he's been educated to do, even though he's describing something above his pay grade, which is what's actually happening here. He's just trying to describe something that's above his pay grade, and he's got 1.3 million people to cater to, and none of them are going to say, actually, by the way, this makes no sense for the reasons we're giving, because for the most part, they're affirming their already probably vague ideas about it anyway. And they're like, well, I'm no expert in fourth dimensional space-time, so who am I to call him out on being wrong? Or they wouldn't recognize anything being wrong when he's talking about penis vectors coming out of two-dimensional stickmen and moving up through height versions of time. You're like, oh my God, we can say it and cringe, but most people just nod.
Because they don't understand anything about it at all, right? It gives them the headache, so they're just like, okay, you seem to know what you're talking about because you're talking about something very fluid that I don't understand. So yeah, sure, whatever you say. That's how people respond.
Yeah, like I say, that's the most egregious part. When, if you're going to talk about space-time, you know, at the very least, understand that it's not a force, you know. But like with Craig, Fight the Flat Earth, he really doesn't want that to be the case, and will fight the globe Earth to try and prove his notions of it being a force at a high school level being correct. Like, but it isn't, and it doesn't matter how many priests of his own caliber or own side tell him it's not a force. He wants it to be.
It's an emerging force.
Right, because if it isn't a force, then how the hell are you going to model everything, right? So he just recognizes that, just like Baldwin does.
Yeah, but Chocolate's just an
sure,
asshole.
it's not a force, but I mean, there's still.
Just wait till he gets back and
how,
talk about
does
it
this
with him when he gets
heliocentric
here,
model
Arwin.
fit
You know,
then?
I don't want to talk about Chocolate behind his back like that. You know, I know you don't like him, but it's okay. Just tell him when he's here.
What?
Word up.
Oh, Chocolate, hello. Sorry, didn't see you there.
Oh yeah, no worries.
What?
It's an emerging force.
Just forget it, Arwin. Just doesn't matter. We'll talk about it later.
What?
I
I was talking about Baldwin.
That's right. We were just talking about Baldwin, Chocolate. Nothing to do with you.
Yeah. Yeah.
What the fuck? Okay. This must be
right,
like a black thing, this kind of joke, right?
It is. It's just a black thing. Only me and Chocolate get it.
Yeah, so that video real quick is in masterpiece. It's only like 40 seconds, but it's kind of funny.
So what happened? I'll tell you what happened. The friction with the quark sent Earth backwards to counteract the ball going forwards with the same momentum. But the Earth is huge. So this has a small mass and has high velocity forward. This has a huge mass and very low velocity forward. No one even notices it. You know, yeah, so the Earth is feeling everybody's acceleration on the cars. When you're running, how is it I can start at 0 speed and just go forward? I'm pushing backwards against the Earth. And the Earth is like feeling this. It's that everybody's doing it in every direction, and it just all cancels out. And there it is.
What the hell? He's really suggesting that backspin that a player puts on a basketball is caused by the force generated by Earth. When is this recent?
I don't know when it's from. Shout out to Steve who shared that with me yesterday. So I figured I had to send it here. But yeah, he's literally saying if like you put some backspin on the ball and the ball hits the ground, the ball is sending the Earth is going to feel the backspin and actually react to it. It's just that it's so big, the mass and all that it doesn't really happen. This is nonsense.
You didn't. You're paraphrasing slightly, but yes. Brilliant. What a catch. I can't quite believe my ears, but yeah. Tyson never ceases to amaze me.
Hey, my brother was shocked at the radius of Earth that it was only 3959. He was like, but how can it be? That's not even big.
No, it's not, is it?
Yeah. Yeah, I had a guy tell me the same thing. A guy that was, I believe he was in the military. I want to say in the Navy. I'm not sure, but I know he was military or ex-military. And when I was going over the Black Swan with him, he stopped me. When I said, if the Earth is a sphere with a radius of 3959, I was like, 3959, was that miles? I was like, yeah. He's like, nah, it can't be miles. That's like 4,000 miles. I was just like, well, yeah, a little less. He's like, nah. I couldn't even get to the argument because he refused to understand that the radius of the Earth is only 3959 miles according to his model.
Yeah, it's not the first time you've told us stories like that, Chocolate, where the person you're disseminating this information to will stop you in your tracks because they don't want to accept a fundamental premise of heliocentrism when it's explained to them. In other words, it doesn't matter that you're explaining them a concept that doesn't work as a flat earther. You go, well, if Spaceman or Starman's in space, and they go, whoa, I don't accept that as being in space. No, that is actually true and claimed to be real. That's claimed to be in space.
Exactly.
No, I don't accept that. Well, no, I'm about to debunk it as not being real, but you're telling me you just don't accept it as being part of your religion. No, I don't accept Starman. No, I don't accept that Earth's that small. No, it is. It's claimed to be that small. We're about to debunk it, but you already don't accept that. Okay.
Well,
that's my reaction. Oh, I mean, okay, this is, and that person would be the same person that told me, but I definitely believe in space. Oh, but the Starman thing, that's not real? No, of course not. But you think that the place that thing is in is real, but you don't believe the thing is there?
With time,
like,
they'll do that, Chocolate, with the moon landing. So eventually it'll reach a point where they've diluted down and it'll be memory hold enough to the point where people will, get hold of the scrappy old footage of clear stop motion animation or something, and they'll have equivalent conversation, but just not about Starman. And it'll be, well, you don't actually believe the moon landings happen, do you? And the heliocentrists will go, oh, hell no. Yeah, but I still believe space is real. I still believe we're on a sphere. But hell no, of course they didn't go to the moon. What a total lie. But yeah, space is still true. Just like, what's the guy with the bald head that went and got kicked in the arse by astronauts? Astronauts Gone Wild guy. Bart Sabrell. Bart Sabrell's a perfect example of that. He's out showing in no uncertain terms how they faked the moon landing. How much of the footage does not make physical sense in a reality kind of way. Yeah? And showing how they won't swear on the Bible. The Christian God-fearing ones won't swear on the Bible that they went to the moon, but the atheists will. Yeah, that's what he's showing. Do you still believe in space, though? The area that they were lying about going to and you can prove they didn't go to, you still believe that area that basically has no evidence for it, now that you've debunked it, you still believe that area is real? Oh, yeah. Oh, we've still got orbits. That's where we're going.
Is there such thing as Christian God-fearing astronauts?
Yeah.
I don't think so.
Yeah, there is.
How can that be?
Well, that's what they claim to be. I can only take it at face value, can't I, Neil?
I guess you're right, because one came to Times Square Church and started talking about how he went to the moon.
Yeah, lying bastard.
Well, the radius has to be that because it's all back engineered, right? They can't get away with the angles to the stars. So it has to fit something. And then they make a globe out of it.
Oh, can I do a quick plug? So, I should have done this in one of the live shows more recently. Bart Sabrell was recently interviewed by Russian vids. Did all of you catch that?
I did it.
It was great.
No, I didn't see that.
Nope.
See if you can catch it. Of course you haven't, because why would that be offered to you, given it's the specific subject that you talk about daily? Obviously, you wouldn't want to see Russians' video of someone specifically having evidence debunking the moon landing and his discussion points on it. I mean, not to mention the fact that he highly lent upon his Christian faith in all of this. I mean, it's not like that's directly connected to many of the views of the people on this panel. So why would you have been offered that by YouTube? I mean, bloody hellfire. Unreal.
Well, what about this? What about if Sabral is also? What about if Sabral is in cahoots with the astronauts, and all this nonsense that he did at their houses was all part of what they wanted to have happen?
I just don't think
none
that's
of them
the
are
case.
actually Christians or anything like that.
Because I just don't.
I don't see.
I can only go on what I glean from how honest I believe him to be when I hear him talk. That's all I can go by. I mean, the most recent piece of that is Russian Vid's video. I strongly suggest you go and check it out. And just, yeah, like we were talking about Humble H in his smirks when he's talking, like I'm doing now, right? You can hear it. Well, the same thing is true, and it's why I recommend every so often the behaviour panel, because they're trying to kind of train you how to sort of see and hear those things where they may not be necessarily obvious at first. Well, I'm not saying I'm any expert in body language, far from it, but I'm saying to my ears and eyes, I don't detect any deception from Bart Sabrell. He doesn't strike me as a bullshitter. And when he tries to justify his continued belief in a sphere, he does it to the best of his ability. Now, with most heliocentrists, I tar them with the same brush as I would Bart Sabrell. That's not an astronaut's tarring, by the way. They are, as I said earlier, lying shit. You know, lying bastards. Saying they've been to Narnia? Saying they've been to a sky vacuum that would leave us all dead with no gas pressure? No, obviously not. They're definitely lying. But Bart Sabrell? I can't in any good conscience claim that about him. I'm sorry.
All right.
I do kind of feel the same way. Like when I listen to him, I don't really get that he's. I mean, obviously, people can be actors, people can be full of shit, but him, every time I listen to the guy, I've never gotten that. Right? I've never gotten that he's just trying to pull something off. But you know, I could be wrong.
Plus, what's he trying to get out of it? Look at the guy's face, right? You can see a little roadmap of his life written all over him. Is he steeped in riches? He's being interviewed by Russian vids. No offense to Russian vids, but he ain't the BBC, is he? Right? And when you see Bart Sabrell, you're not seeing a guy who's rolling around in wealth. His stories are of oppression and of people trying to censor him and shut him down. And then he's got visual evidence of that occurring. Now, when he puts it and compiles it into documentary form, suddenly people go like, well, what if he's in on it? Like, okay, yeah, he might be. But that doesn't alter what he's showing at face value, does it? And you can glean from it what it offers. Now, is there a subcontext? Yeah, there might be. But I don't detect one from him. And even his material and his work. Is the flaws in it? Is some of the logic that he presents flawed? Yeah. But he's just a guy. I don't know. I don't see anything nefarious because I don't see any positive outcome for him as a result of what he's done. So again, in terms of motivation, for what? What's he getting out of it again? It's not like he's bloody Kubrick or anything, is it?
No, I take that on board. I don't know. I just have so little faith in basically anything were presented, you know. That's a bit of a hyper skeptic.
Don't blame you.
It's funny though when you say faith, but like when you listen to him, he is very faith involved. I'm assuming. I think he's a Christian, so he does tend to hold that very. At least the way it sounds like he holds that close to his chest. So it could be because it sounds to me like he's on a mission. Because obviously, if this is a giant lie that's been told to humanity, it's nonsense. And I completely agree with him when he says, you know, this is literally the only place where technology is like gone backwards. There's things we could do 60 years ago that we can't do now. Like it's just a real basic argument, but I mean it holds true. You know, you can't tell me we could get to the moon in 1969 and then we can't do it in 2023. Like it's ridiculous.
Off the back of your first point, that was how he opened his interview with Russian Vids. His explanation for why he was there, being interviewed by Russian Vids, was his affinity to Russian Vid's viewpoint when it came to Christianity. It's like, we align on this subject. And he made his disclaimers. He's like, I'm here, but I want to make it clear from the offset, I'm not a flat earther. Now, I appreciate that Russian Vid, a bit like I was trying to tell my kid this morning in the car, you know, his disclaimers, I not that I'd lost any respect for Bart Sibrel, but when he just made that disclaimer, which was to say, I understand that Russian Vids is a flat earther. I am not. However, I am here to disseminate my truth, and the reason I've agreed to do it with a flat earther, in other words, I'm under the understanding I'm not going to get grilled about my globe belief by him, is because we align on our Christianity beliefs. Therefore, there's a mutual understanding between us. He didn't say that, but I'm reading between the lines and paraphrasing what he did say. And you'll get exactly what I've said from what he does say. You don't have to read much between the lines. And he didn't get a massive grilling, or I assume. I didn't see the full interview. I think Russian Vids has released about an hour of it. Or maybe it was even less, I forget. But in any event, the point is that he's not expecting to be hauled over the coals by a fellow Christian in this example, affirming what Chocolate's first points were about, you know, his alluding, although he makes it seem like he wants to keep that private and doesn't want to make it a major part of his public life, that he's a Christian.
The thing I'd have an issue with is the astronauts that are supposedly Christians. Armstrong, maybe, but those others, I'm like, nah. It's like, don't be trying to give me the impression that you're a Christian and also openly part of a society, I'm not going to name this society, that is known for being covert and elusive. You know, it's like, I just can't believe.
Let me just try and oppose what you're saying.
I can't take in the I'm an honest Christian thing. I can't take that in.
That's because that's a false notion. That's an idealistic view of Christianity and Christians. So, having grown up in the Methodist Church and having many of the congregation disclaim their stories of heroin abuse, adultery, and all the other things that they'd been a part of, and explaining how they'd been set free of their sins by Christianity. And then it's the whole, you know, don't fall into the mistakes that I had and all the rest of it. Just on a side note, I remember coming home once after one of these, after being in church, and talking about it with my brother in the back of the car. And my brother, he's older now, but back in the day, he was a proper party animal, as was I to a certain extent. But him saying, did you hear that guy talking about that? What he's basically saying is, when I grew up, I had loads of parties, I shagged loads of women, I had loads of fun. But now I've decided that I don't want to do that anymore, and I'm telling you probably shouldn't do that anymore. You shouldn't do it either. Don't go out and have loads of fun and do loads of drugs and shag loads of women, because it turned out badly for me, therefore you shouldn't do it. My brother's attitude was like, that's so unfair. I want to go out and do all of those things. How dare you tell me that I'm not allowed to do those things because they ended badly for you? That was his attitude when hearing those stories. Sorry, total sidebar.
But it's hypocritical in some ways. People that talking about their bad experiences with whatever, cocaine addiction and whatever else. And there were all these parties and it was all terrible, supposedly. And it all ended up so bad after they had loads and loads of fun. It's like, well,
that's not what...
You have to take the ups with the downs, you know. It is what it is.
That's not what they're saying. They are having fun. The Bible even says sins are pleasurable. That's why people do them. It's not that they're not saying it wasn't pleasurable.
Sorry,
they're saying it ended bad because it's a sinful behavior which will end bad.
Right. Sorry, I just wanted to bring that back. That's where I was trying to draw the comparison. That's where we're off on a sidebar and forgot my point. Yeah, your idealistic view of how Christians will somehow be truthful and faithful to their wives and not go off and steal and cheat and commit fraud. No. Hold on, Brian. No. That's people. There's lots of them. Some of them are Christians. Yeah? Do you see where I'm going?
Yep, I do. But for me, if I'm claiming to be something and I'm claiming to follow a faith, then there's no way that I can claim to do that honestly while also being some other thing that opposes it. Just makes no sense.
Well, yeah, you've only got to look at... Okay. Well, look at Neil Armstrong. Now, I know you sort of peppered over this like it was like, okay, well, he is the exception to the rule. You've only got to look at one of his public appearances, of which were very limited, and listen to the coded up nonsense that he spews to know the guy's absolutely racked with guilt. And you can see it's written all over their face when the Sky at Night guy, what's his name, Patrick Moore, interviews them after coming back from the moon. And he's asking them about what he saw. Now, Patrick's more excited about the whole thing than they are. They all look like someone's just taken... I did chocolate phrase it a few years back. Like someone's just taken a crap in their cornflakes. That's how they look. Morose.
Well, the interview with all three of them in front of that huge press corps, initially when they supposedly came back, that's a big tell. And then I saw the black and white interview, the one you're talking about with Patrick Moore, total guilt. And I mean, the speech doesn't make any sense. Then someone hired a body language guy to review it, and he said, yeah, the guy's lying. But here's the deal.
That's D. Hall, Richard D. Hall. Let me just plug that. So that's Richard D. Hall, another example like Bart Sabrellas. We're on the subject. That's the only reason I'm being so rude, 10th. I'm really sorry. Richard D. Hall is another guy who debunks things like the moon landings, debunks a lot of NASA's bullshittery, but absolutely unequivocally hates flat earthers and still believes the Earth's a sphere and we're rotating around the sun.
That makes no sense.
No, that's just how it is. That's the way we're going, I'm telling you. Anyway, sorry, 10th.
Well, no, it's all right. What I was going to say is that being a Christian, people say, well, this Christian astronaut spoke at this church. What's your comment on that, 10th man? I said, very simple. I will show him videos from NASA that shows them on wires pretending to be in zero gravity in space, in the ISS. And then I will show all of the bloopers that's supposed to come from a region that's a violation of the second law of thermodynamics. And I will ask this person, if you say you went where you went and these things are real, then why is this being done on a monthly, yearly basis from NASA that shows it's all fake? I believe you're lying to me. I will call him out.
Yeah, and you know what, 10th? This astronaut that came to Times Square Church, he was well-versed in Scripture. So what about the Scripture when you point them to Scripture? Where is it telling you any of this?
That's not the reason he came to church. He came to church to lie, because the fact that he is saying he went somewhere, and today in 2023, we can see videos of wires holding them up and blue screens as George Sr. Bush is in the wheelchair coming in. Like, who takes a blue screen to a camping trip to show the camping trip?
Not only that, the way he brought his message is like saying how glorious God is when you see that blue marble from space, and they're trying to give the glory to God, but
no, that's
not what it is.
We keep
that's a
dancing over the
satanic
point.
lie.
Hold on, right? There's plenty of Christians that would affirm their faith in jail, prosecuted for murder. There's plenty of Christians who sleep with their neighbours' wives, adulterers that are most certainly Christians. There are Christians who thieve. So
yeah, but that's different.
To say
you're not talking about the same thing.
Brian's standards are just absurd. Brian's saying, I don't believe that Christians would lie about going to space. Well, I do. Sorry.
No, number one, I don't think he's a Christian. the fact that someone says, I'm a Christian, based on what? Your own testimony about yourself? Or can I see it in your life lived out? Because that you shall know them, right? How are we supposed to know them? Okay, number one, by the love that we show. Number two, to imitate Christ. All right, well, Christ never lied. All right, but I know you're lying because I can prove it now. And so what do you have to say for this? So then I meet people who get a little glimpse of the Christian message and say, oh, so Christ will forgive me of everything? So I'm just going to go sin and I'll be forgiven. All I have to do is say this prayer. Well, that's not a Christian either. So just because someone calls himself a Christian doesn't mean they're a Christian.
And 10th, what does the Apostle Paul say? That his
Lots of
life
things.
is an open book being read of all men.
I can't believe I've just had that standard twisted. No, it's not that just because somebody says they're a Christian and then they lie about space doesn't mean they're a Christian. That's not what I meant.
That's not what I was addressing. I'm saying Jesus in Matthew chapter 7 is addressing a bunch of religious people, and it's showing them at the end, just before judgment. And so then they say, we did this in your name, we did that in your name, we cast out demons, we did all these things. And Jesus says, I never knew you. You're a Christian if Jesus knows you. But if you say you know Jesus and you live a life that's not even at all humbled, given to Christ, then you might be that guy in Matthew 7 at the end of your life. That doesn't...
Sorry, 10th. In other words, you're saying that a real Christian, hold on, a real Christian is not going to practice adultery. He's not going to practice fornication. Now, would he be surprised by sin? Can it happen? Of course it can.
Then there's no need to forgive any. Hold on. Then there's no need to forgive any Christians for their sins. I mean, they're basically sinless.
No, that's
no. Don't confuse.
Let
me finish it. I won't say. No, the Christian gospel is very simple. Man can't do anything to become perfect as God requires because of sin. So God made the situation to where man can be perfected because it's the resume of Christ that God looks at, not the Christian, the guy who became a Christian in his resume. Okay, that's justification. Now, sanctification is the process in which you, as a sinner, are walking on this earth until you die. You're going to be tempted by sin. So Christians do sin, as Nathan says, absolutely. But they are to repent, they're to confess their sins. Now, if someone makes a practice of sin, a habitual practice of sin, this at this point is going to be like, wait a minute, are you even saved? Because it's very difficult with your conscience and the Holy Spirit telling you you shouldn't be doing this, you keep doing something. Well, then your first love is not God. Your first love is your desires of your flesh. You may not even be a Christian. Okay, now this is something that has to be sorted out because it's the false message. But then when you die, it's the glorification that happens to the Christian who was justified. But his life is one of resisting temptation and fighting sin all his life.
Yeah, and some people can't help, and they succumb to it and lie about space, and they're still Christians.
Hold on.
Well, that's where. No, hang on. That's where I will challenge them directly to their face. If an astronaut comes to my church, I will be the first one in his face. You betcha.
Fair enough.
So they sign disclaimers, though, right? When you become an astronaut, do you sign a disclaimer? That's what I want to know.
Yeah, the devil stands there with a pen dripping in blood.
I'm sure you got to sign all types of shit.
That's right, Brian.
What if they're in virtual reality
Brian?
things?
Hang on. Say it again, Brian.
How does your disclaimer overcome your Christian faith?
That's right.
But what I'm saying, here's what I'm saying. What if they're in virtual reality things where they think that they are going into space?
Oh, God.
I was in rides where I thought I was in Africa in Disney.
No.
It would be even easier. They could be at the bottom of abyssal.
Hello. No. Why would you want to give them that? Why would you want to? It's like saying, no, they didn't really go to the moon in the way they showed us on TV. They went to the dark side of the moon to deal with the alien base. Well, that's akin to what you've just done, Neil. No. They're not just lying about going to a place. Hold on, Neil. They're not just lying about a place they can't actually go to. they were duped. They were put under hallucinogens and then put into a simulation. Why are you doing that for them on their behalf? Why?
Because I can't see anybody being a Christian standing at a pulpit saying that they were at the moon. I can't see that.
Right, that's the difference then, isn't it? Because, hold on, let me just address this with Neil. No, well, that's the difference. I can very much picture somebody who is absolutely dyed-in-the-wood Christian and would absolutely be able to convince you of that fact, still stand up in front of a crowd full of people and lie to them. I can definitely picture that, Neil. I know you might find it hard. I don't find that hard.
Well, we need to make the distinction between a good Christian, bad.
Hold on, John. When I was preaching, if there was something a little off in my life, I would not stand at that pulpit, even though it was a small group of kids in a drug-infested neighborhood. I would not dare go to that pulpit if there was anything wrong in my life, the slightest thing. So I can't see that when you are a real Christian.
Yeah, but you have some type of intellectual honesty, Neil. Not everyone else does. There are plenty of people running around calling themselves. Well, there are plenty of people that are running around calling themselves real Christians or aren't doing real Christian shit. I mean, that's just people. That's how people are. You know.
There are pastors. There are pastors who lie from the pulpit. There are. We catch them all the time, and then we have to go. Okay, can I finish? So there are people who lie from the pulpit because people are sinners, and this is what Christ came to save us from. Okay, so now, as you're saying you're a Christian and you somehow are with NASA and you're an astronaut, and we can easily prove, without even a shadow of a doubt, that the stuff you're showing us is fake, but you're saying it's not fake, then we're going to have a conversation, and I'm going to challenge you by your testimony of being a Christian. How can you lie like this? Then you're going to have to somehow answer why there's wires on astronauts, why there's bubbles in space, why that piece of tin can garbage in black and white that was supposed to have gone to the moon looks like it could barely stand up on its own. You're going to have to answer all the backdrop questions, everything, because space is fake, buddy. You know it.
Why one of your guys will say it's the brightest bright that you've ever experienced, and then somebody else will say, "Oh, it's the darkness," but you've been to the same place.
And then you got a hole, and you got a hole in the ISS, and you put a piece of gum or something. I mean, give me a break.
Man, you called it a tin can piece of garbage. That's exactly what it was, though.
I didn't call you that. I called that machinery that supposedly went up. Yeah, it's a joke. No, liars are everywhere, period. And Christians who are not walking with God lie.
I don't see how.
Okay. The thing
You
is,
don't
you're
see
going to have
how. You just told me that if you had something going on in your life, I expect that would be some kind of misbehavior. You couldn't go to the pulpit.
Right, that's what I'm saying. So why are they going there?
So Christians lie. You couldn't go because you felt guilt. They're going, and that's what they're doing wrong. Them going is the wrong thing. You wouldn't go because you knew you were doing something wrong.
Okay.
I guess it's your walk with God. I'm sorry, John. Go ahead.
I just want to say, I think this is y'all are talking cross purposes. How are you defining Christian? Because 10th man is defining it as someone who is acting in imitation of Christ. And on the other side, it seems that you can just claim your faith in Christianity. Christian. So there's that distinction of how you're going to define what a Christian is.
Well, Christianity is someone who imitates Christ.
Neil. Go ahead, John.
But even in the Bible, it says the righteous man falls 7 times. So even within, that imitation, you will be flawed and you will sin, right? So
correct.
There's several terms that need to be identified first, and what imitation not actually to be.
And you don't become a Christian by imitating Christ. After you become a Christian, your advised to imitate Christ's life. Now, can you do it? No. So the goal is to be more Christ-like. You don't become a Christian by being more Christ-like. You become a Christian by confessing your sin and realizing you need his sacrificial death and resurrection instead of you trying to work your way to heaven by such good behavior, because there's no working to heaven in Christianity. It's God did something for you that you can do for yourself. Now, because he did that, he gives you a new heart, you become a new creature, and old things have passed away. So you reckon the old you dead, okay? And you say, I'm going to live for Christ and I'm going to imitate Christ. Now, that's what I'm trying to do with my life. I'm not going to say I've never sinned after I became a Christian. I sinned a lot after I became a Christian, because I became a Christian at 14. I'm 64. I've had 50 years of trying not to sin on purpose. Whereas before I didn't even care. I sinned no matter what, because I didn't have a new heart. I didn't have this hope in Christ. So what I'm trying to say is that to be a Christian is one thing. To walk as a Christian, that's your sanctification process while you still carry the body of sin. The sinful desires are still there in a Christian. He just has to fight it. And he's fighting it with a belief in Christ and a new heart. When Christians lie, though, they get called out, and we have been told how to go to them directly and call them out. So if an astronaut claims to be a Christian, fine, I'll accept it. And then if he lies, then I'll go call him out.
That's why the Apostle Paul says, who shall deliver me from the body of this death?
Can I throw a monkey in the wrench? Can you guys hear me? I've been trying to get in for a few minutes. Mike, check.
Yes.
Yep. Go ahead with the
Is
monkey
there ever a
wrench.
time?
What's up, Paul?
Okay, just playing devil's advocate a little bit here. Is there ever a time where it's okay to lie? For example, pulling from the scripture, it says that the Rahab, the prostitute, was considered righteous for lying about the spies, right? Not turning the spies in. And obviously we know stories of the Holocaust when there was Christians that lied to protect the Jews. You know, there's Corrie ten Boom is a good story if you've never heard of her. So the question has to be, can you still be a Christian and lie and it still be okay? Which I would say that yes, there is. So you'd have to know the circumstances and why the lie is in place. If you don't have the full story, you don't know. Okay, so I'm not saying there might be a reason they're lying, and I don't know the reason. I can't say I know the reason, but there could be a good reason for it that would justify the lie. So
The astronauts?
we can't. It doesn't. Well, it doesn't. I mean, this is an overall general statement. Whether it's an astronaut, a military guy lying about troop deployments, whether it be covert operations where they're giving false information to deceive the enemy. I mean, there could be any number of reasons why lying in a given circumstance would be okay. If you say lying is
why
never
did Rahab
okay,
lie?
she protected the spies.
Okay, we know why
God's
she
people.
lied.
Right.
All right.
So the only point I'm making, we're throwing these guys under the bus, which I understand that. Trust me, I've been on this side. I'm just playing devil's advocate here. That's all I'm playing. But there could be a justified reason why they're lying. You know, and so that means if they're a Christian, they may have good reason why they are lying. Not saying it's what they'd have to reveal that reason to say why they're doing it, and then we'd have to evaluate it. All I'm saying is, and also another question is,
what the astronaut said at my church, there was no way he could be justified in that. He didn't just lie; he expounded on it. I don't know.
Well, that may be fine. I'm just trying to make an argument. That's how I'm playing devil's advocate and trying to make a point. So,
is he saving lives when he was? Is he saving lives when he lies?
I don't know. I don't know the circumstance. I don't know the whole
Corrie
story.
ten Boom. I've had this argument with fellow Christians. They say, "Well, would you lie if you lived in the time of World War II and you had Jews?" I go, "Absolutely. I'd give my life to protect somebody." So if I'm going to give my life, I'd say, yeah, there's no Jews here to protect them. Yeah, I would, because who am I lying to? I'm lying to the devil's soldiers who want to kill my neighbors. Okay, so the context is everything. And so now, why would this astronaut standing in front of God's people in the church under no pressure, no soldiers, no one trying to kill anybody, no basements to hide anyone in, why would he lie?
Protect the firmament.
Well, let me give it. Well, no, well, I don't know. I mean, I'm just going to give you again, I'm playing devil's advocate in this. Like, sometimes what you call non-classified information can become classified when it's bundled together. And John's on here, he could probably attest to this. But sometimes that can happen. And also, sometimes you don't even give away the data. It may not be classified, but you just don't want to give it away because it could reveal something else. You know, and I said, I don't know. I'm just playing devil's advocate here. I don't, if it's nothing of major consequence, no major significance, then yes, I agree with 10th Man. The truth should be revealed. You know, but if there's something greater that we don't see, that they may know, that we don't know, it's hard to
maybe it's more sorry, Tim. Maybe it's more practical. Maybe it's just simply that these guys wanted to be astronauts. They get into an industry where they realize, these people are telling everyone that they're putting other people in a place that doesn't exist. I would like to keep my job. I've made this a career, so I'm just going to continue it. I don't think there are a whole lot of people that would realize, oh, NASA's just lying to everybody. Oh, I'm just going to quit.
Well, if
right.
The two cases that Paul gave has to do with saving lives. Masons believe the light bearer is the creator, and that's Lucifer. So if this astronaut is a Mason, he's going to use the Bible and say he's a Christian, but his God is Lucifer, the light bearer.
That's correct.
But do we know that for certain that Masons believe that or follow that? We don't, like, I'm not saying they do or they don't.
I've read excerpts from Masonic research that does say that. So let's put it where it's at. People lie in church. People lie out of church.
And can y'all hear me? Can y'all hear me, guys? Hello?
Yeah.
No, we can't.
Yes, sir.
I'm sorry.
Someone speaking?
I had to sign out and come back in because something was wrong with my feed. But anyway, let's reverse the question. Why has Buzz Aldrin come out and told the truth? Let's talk about that. What is his motivation? Maybe he.
Well, am I missing something? What did Buzz Aldrin come out and tell?
Oh,
he said why we didn't go?
No. Yeah, he said things because we didn't go. Well, that's a good question, young lady.
Some
to the 8-year-old,
right?
No, that's just one. That's just
some 3-year-old asked him why he went to the moon, and he said, "Well, the simple truth is we didn't." That was his answer.
We did, and then he did. There was another interview he had. Not the satire, but when he was saying, that to me that was a mockery of us, that he was going to say something. It's almost like the way Dwayne Johnson, The Rock, said, "We eat children," and yada yada. It's just to stir up conspiracy theories. Like, I told you they eat children, but no. There's many accounts with Buzz Aldrin that literally had said, just like he answered to that girl, that it never happened. He said it to a college girl. He said, "Oh, was it scary up there? How scared you were?" We weren't scared because there's nothing to be scared of because we weren't there.
Okay, do you want to know what I read that as? Probably him having experienced what his co-conspirator did with his words of how did I describe him earlier? I was saying about him encoding various things about lifting the veil on the truth of the moon landing. That's Neil Armstrong, right? When he's talking to a group of graduates. Well, by comparison, no offense to Buzz Aldrin, but he's a drunk. So that's the drunk version of the same thing when you're getting on a bit in life.
How about the time he was talking to Bart Sibrel and he said, "We were just passengers." Now, who would ever say that about their trip to the moon?
Exactly. Okay, so Buzz Aldrin, you're saying Buzz Aldrin would be, he would be pretty much removed from character and discredited because, that's just Uncle Drunk Buzz talking.
But yep, that's exactly
you know
what they're
saying. The drunk uncle's usually the one that tells the truth. Carl's not your father. that's the one that really blows the whistle. And because
that drunk uncle's the one that lets all the family secrets go at Christmas parties.
There you go, because he can't filter it. He's he's not inhibited. He just says what he wants to say. So you got to look at it on that.
No, that's self-evident. But what I'm saying is, in the mind's eye of drunk Buzz, he thinks he's encoding this subtly. That's what I'm trying to say.
Exactly. There you go. Exactly.
Well,
and he looks back.
The interesting thing about that conversation with that child is he was actually trying to answer why we wouldn't go back to the moon, because he, like we all know, we know that he didn't go there. He knows he didn't go there, but he's trying to figure out, because he does still believe it's a sphere, why they didn't go back, or why they haven't gone yet.
Wait, if he said why we didn't go back, that means he went before.
No, he said because we never did. Because we never did.
But sure, they tried to go to the moon at some point.
She stumped him. The 8-year-old stumped him with that question. How come y'all won't go back? Because we never did. Meaning we never went.
Right. He was. So the only way I can interpret that is, at the time that the lie was made, he felt justified in doing what he was doing for whatever reason. Maybe he was under the impression that it had something to do with the race and lying, just they would win. And who knows? But maybe it had him doubt as much as the child was wondering what the truth was.
But maybe
hold on, just
maybe
1 second,
it doesn't
guys.
matter anymore.
Is John cutting in? Is that my second amp breaking?
No, he's cutting in and out.
No, John is cutting in now.
You're cutting in and out a bit.
Yeah, you're going to promote yourself. Yeah, go for me again.
No, it might be me. Was Brian cutting out a bit then?
I'm Brian's about to get muted, I think.
Was I cutting out before?
Yeah.
Oh, thank God, Chocolate's here.
I was trying to.
No, you're loud and
one's
clear.
cutting
Everything's
out.
fine. I can just about hear you.
No one's cutting out except for John.
Except Nathan's trying to cut.
I'm losing my point now. Hang on, I think I had a point to make. But what about if
you just hold that thought while I do my GoFundMe plug, Brian?
Okay.
I'm only joking. Go ahead. I'm really sorry. It was a cheap shot.
Yeah. Well, what about the way people were thinking about why would someone who claims to be a Christian also lie, especially up on the pulpit or whatever? Well, how do we if it's a nowadays astronaut? There could be someone. If it's a nowadays astronaut, I don't know. But is it possible that the Freemasons or some group like that know about some code that they're not allowed to break, that's set in place by God Himself? You're not allowed to break this code, so you can't let people know that they're living in a place that is created. That part of the whole point of us being here is to figure out where we are. So I could test to see who's going to start believing that we're insignificant or an accident, or you know what I mean? Start believing in things like the vacuum of space.
Nah, too complicated. I like your older explanation, Brian.
Well,
your former explanation was better. Just the whole greater good thing. They convinced them that it's because we need to beat the Russians or whatever they've convinced them with. They just spin them a yarn that they need to be spun so that they do what they need them to do.
Yeah,
or
but
even what Brian said.
I haven't finished what I was saying. So look, forget about it. If you don't, forget about it. If you don't want, if it's
I do want the other side. I just wanted to respond to the first bit before I forgot that. Go ahead, Brian.
We don't know if there is some code in place that we're not aware of, that certain people are aware of, that they can't break and they can't leave anyone else to break. We don't know that. We don't know if things are part of a destiny, an overall destiny of all people on the earth, and that we just have to, everyone has to work within this code, and most people don't know anything about the code. There's a certain thing you can't break, and that's that.
Right, like in Back to the Future, with you. Like with Lorraine. Lorraine, you are my density.
I'm about to agree with Brian with a major disclaimer, though. Yes, there is a code in place. It's called secret societies. And the Bible and the God of the Bible says don't get involved with that. So it's not the God of the Bible that's given them any code. It's the secret societies that have a code.
Yeah, but you don't know that.
John got
I
it.
do know that because I know the Bible.
But you don't know that.
Bible.
You believe in the Bible, and that's what you believe in. You don't know.
I'm agreeing with you that there is a code in place. But the God of the Bible says don't have secret societies, don't be doing anything in secret, okay? So I'm agreeing that that's in place, but it's not from the Bible. Now,
Yeah,
where's
that's
it
fine,
from?
but the Bible is, okay, I get that, but the Bible is just
Well,
your
that's
belief.
all I'm saying.
Yeah,
No,
that's
it's not
fine,
my
but
belief. It's
is
not
your
my belief.
You do believe in it.
No, you please put it in context. It is what it. I believe it, but it is what it says. Is what I'm trying to say. I don't believe it, and then it says it.
I don't disagree with that. I'm not disagreeing that it says that in the Bible. I'm not disagreeing with that. I'm talking about a code that very, very few people are aware of, and anything that anyone believes has no relevance on it. This code is you cannot break that. Let's just say it's like a challenge for us to find out where we live, find out what we live on.
Are you been sniffing the old gematria again, Brian? Is that what this is?
I got this the first time. Let me at least finish it, please. I got this the first time. The code does exist. It's just not in the Bible. Okay, so
but the Masons
hold on, Brian.
Because the Masons use the Bible.
Okay, everyone stop.
Because
one at a time.
Everyone
stop.
Brian.
Stop. Just one at a time. Brian, just let 10th get to the end of this point. Everyone else, hold your tongue. Go ahead, 10th.
Yes, my point is this. I agree with Brian 100%. But since the Masons cite the Bible, use the Bible, it's not the God of the Bible giving them the code. That's all.
Now, may I? The
Freemasons. If Brian is referencing the 10 Commandments.
Excuse me. Pardon me.
Well, you asked, may I? So, yeah, and
right.
Then
so
my answer was no.
He is.
Really? Well, anyway,
hold
as
on,
I was
D-Rose
saying,
and hold on. Just let him get to the end of it, D-Rose. He's not gonna yield to you. Go ahead, no tanks, and then D-Rose, then Brian, who really should be going now anyway.
Yeah, I just wanted Brian to clarify if he's referencing the 10 Commandments when he references the code.
I'm not referencing the Bible at all. I didn't bring the Bible into it whatsoever, not even once. Other people are bringing the Bible into it. I have no reference to that at all. That has nothing to do with what I said.
Okay, go ahead, D-Rose.
Okay, now, first of all, Freemasons don't only use the Bible, they use the Quran too. Okay, so that's secondly. And they use the Torah. So they don't use just one Bible, one text or one scripture. But back with what Brian was saying, that code of silence, they take death oaths. Reason why I know this is because I know Freemasons. I'm not a traveling man, but I know a lot of them, the elders. And this is one master teacher called Tariq Bey, whose mother he was a child of a family like that, but he didn't deal with it because he knew of the corruption of it. They make death oaths, literally death oaths, either upon yourself or your loved ones. And yes, they do hold secrets upon the common man in the world, but it has nothing to do with some oath they made between them and the Most High Creator. It's the same thing. Their elders who they look and revere upon, they look at it like, and they tell them they pass down these traditions. So of course they follow these oaths and they keep these secrets. But no, it's not an agreement, a testament between the Most High and man saying, you know what, I don't want y'all to tell the people where my creations really live because I want them to find out for themselves. No, these are people that want to control the minds of the world, and they control things while they benefit and they reap the benefits of our ignorance. So they tell us lies, and they're sworn to oath to keep those secrets. As far as what John's saying with the Bible, he's correct. They do use the Bible, and that's the way they can trick the people, whether it's the Muslims or whether it's the Hebrew that follow the Tanakh and Torah, or that follow the Bible, the Christians, and they tell them, well, this is what it is, this is what it is. And they use those texts. That's the whole great mind manipulation that they use. And that's why they're the most powerful and they control everything, because you can't get into politics, office, or any power structure unless you are a Freemason. That is a solid, bold fact. Hillary Clinton, Hillary Clinton,
I got Paul, Brian, and I want to hear Brian's response because Brian's the one rounding out this point, then Adam.
Well, it's kind of pertinent.
Okay, go ahead.
You're all going off sideways.
Fine, go
ahead.
Leave
Adam, go ahead.
Fine. If we want to look at the King James Bible, whatever, we can read into that whatever code you want, and all those codes will be put there. D. Rose is correct also. This Masonic messing with the Quran also. Recognize if you're going to look at these codes and you think in any way they're from the creator, the only language you're going to be able to analyze this in would be in the original Greek. That would be where the code is written. Okay, not in. It's only after that that we, as English or French people, take that original Greek and translate it. It's at this point, particularly when we look at D, if we're going to look at the Masons and Shakespeare per se, all these people that wrote great literatures and the formation of English with the Bible, which in the Bible is crucial at this point, is the thing that is the foundation for English. That's where the codes are written in. That's when they're constructed. They're not done by a Tenta, the god of this Bible. It's got nothing to do with them. It's the manipulations of man as we translate from Greek into modern English or Old English, as Shakespearean English.
Thank you. Paul, go ahead.
Oh, I hate throwing the monkey in the wrench. I've got a cousin who passed away recently that was a Freemason, and he was a cop. Now, do I think my cousin was out to doing anything nefarious? No, no whatsoever. He was a state trooper, and he did a lot of good. He actually made one of the biggest drug busts in Tennessee over the last whoever knows how many years. Several millions of dollars of drugs were found on a tractor and trailer that he discovered. And he served in his church. He did a great thing. He loved his family. He always done what I thought was ethically right. He took care of people. So just to say, because they're a Freemason, that they're bad, I think it's fallacious.
Nobody said that.
That's not what nobody said.
Yeah, I was making sure.
Okay,
making sure.
Well, it's worth clarifying. Right, there's loads of these groups, like the Freemasons, the Shriners, various other different groups. For the most part, the 99% of them. Let's use another one as well. Scientologists. Right. Let's just use Scientology as opposed to Freemasonry. So we're not causing offence to any Freemasons out there who are charitable, good, God-fearing, hard-working, good people. Yeah, more power to you. Most of them don't involve themselves in any of what we're describing because they're not the elites of whatever group we're talking about. And the same is true of Scientology. Here's my comparison. If you went up to your average rank and file Scientologist and asked them who Xenu was, you're all aware of, on the panel, who Xenu is, first and foremost? Just say, yeah. Somebody, please,
yeah,
God.
Of course.
Fine. Yes. I'll win. Good enough. Right. You ask them, who's Xenu? And they go, who? You go, Xenu. You believe in Xenu, right? And they go, I don't know what the hell you're talking about. I don't know what you're on about. Yeah? And that's somebody who's a dyed-in-the-wood Scientologist. They just haven't reached the level where they get told about the story of Xenu yet. Yeah? So does that mean they're not a Scientologist? No, it doesn't mean anything. So in the same regard, just because you're a Freemason and you've joined for all the right reasons that you saw on the cinema screen in the adverts when they were recruiting for Freemasons, which is quite tricky considering it's got to be friend of a friend. But there we go. They occasionally do the recruitment drives. And if you so happened to find another Freemason who introduced you to the group and you thought, right, these guys have got really good values. And then you just went through your time as a Freemason being a good, God-fearing person. It doesn't mean anything. It's the same as NASA. 99.9999% of the employers at NASA have absolutely nothing to do with any deception. They're just doing their job. And if you ask them if they were part of the deception or accuse them of being, they'd be horrified to even suggest it. This is where you get the stories of my grandfather worked on a part of the shuttle. He worked on this booster technology that controlled this variable valve for the amount of thrust that came out. And he was a very skilled engineer, and he was paid handsomely, and he produced it. I saw it, in fact. I went in and saw it. They let me see it. So that means that we went to the moon. No, it doesn't. No. It means your engineer grandfather worked really hard on some piece of technology. That's what it means. It doesn't mean it went to the moon, I'm afraid. That's just how it is. It also doesn't mean his grandfather was a liar. He wasn't. As far as he was concerned, what he told you...
Can I say something else?
Go on.
Oh, I didn't mean to jump on you. I mean, I think it's more important. That's why I do this all the time on other Discords, even on here. It's better, and if you say, well, he's a Freemason, you're kind of committing the genetic fallacy, saying, well, because he's in this, this, and this. You should just attack the argument or attack the issue, not the person or where it came from, because you don't know. We don't know all the details. I don't even think all the astronauts are Freemason. I know that the Apollo astronauts were because they got documentation of it. That doesn't mean every astronaut from there on out was. You can't assume that either.
Well, I completely agree. In fact, Paul, I'm surprised it's come in defense of Freemasonry. It makes it even slightly more valid because it's not coming in defense of Christianity, which could have easily been the line that we took to make the same point that you're making. Yeah, it's a stereotyping fallacy, and that's really what I should have said to Brian originally, which is to say that just because they're Christian, suddenly they won't be deemed to be capable of lying or something. It's like, no, that's a stereotyping fallacy. Just because they're a Freemason doesn't mean that they're out to poison you with the ideas of Satan.
I had
Can I say my bit in a minute?
Yeah, go on, Brian.
Go ahead, Brian, and then D Rose.
Yeah, well, what I want to say is people are focusing too much on the Bible and Freemasons. The point I made is not connected to any of that. You can try and add that in. But the point I'm making is we don't know if there isn't a code there that stops the likes of NASA from telling us the truth. Maybe NASA would tell the truth if that code didn't exist, if it does exist. That's my point. There might be some reason why they can't. There might be some reason why they can't. It may not be nefarious. That's my point. It doesn't mean that they're telling us that they're not telling us the truth or that they're not lying. The point is that the reason they might be lying might be different from what we perceive. Don't know. Just saying.
Okay, you're not going to get away with it twice, no tanks. Hold on, no tanks. Go ahead, D Rose.
Hey, I just want to say it's just like with the medical field with this whole 2020 to the present. A lot of the doctors and nurses really thought they were doing the right thing until they started analyzing things and started.
Okay, let's not go on this subject. No, sorry.
I'm just saying, you can't generalize. You can't blame
D Rose. No, let's not do it. Go ahead, no tanks.
Gotcha.
Yeah, the reason, Brian, that I had brought that up to you was because you said there may be some kind of a hidden code. Now in the the Hebrew original text, it's been translated. I put it in the chat and tagged you, and it's even, you can find it in simple Wikipedia. But the only place where they translate the text saying where it says the 10 Commandments, it was originally called the 10 Words, right? So with what they use where they translate it, that's the only place in the Bible that they translate words into commandments. So in the Bible it says it was originally a code of 10 words, and now it has been translated. And this guy goes up to a mountain in secret, comes back with these tablets, right? And now it's suddenly a lot of words.
You are way off base.
No secret. The children of Israel were below the mountain. Moses went up. The mountain was lighting up. They saw the thunder and the lightning. They knew something was going on. He came down. They were party animals. They built a golden calf. He threw the very stones God etched the 10 Commandments, and they broke, and the ground swallowed all those heathens who decided to worship a false god. I don't know where they went up to a mountain in secret and got something. Where are you getting your stories from?
No, he's talking about
the golden calf told me. But
I am talking
about the Torah.
The Torah is the first 5 books of Moses.
The Old Testament is. It's the first 5 books.
Yeah, and the 10 Commandments are part of the Torah, are they?
Yeah, it's Moses telling us the history.
But the Torah, where did the Torah come from?
It's the first 5 books of the Old Testament.
Exodus.
Yeah, but where did the Torah
Genesis,
come from?
Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, Deuteronomy.
Yeah. Where did it
came from? It came from people who wrote it down as God inspired them to write it down. That's where it came from.
So I don't take this the wrong way, right? You're my friend. But
no, I'm not taking it the wrong way. I'm challenging this.
Hold on, Tense. Look, I think Brian's. Hold on, everyone stop. Everyone stop. Stop. Right, first of all, I think Brian's agreeing with you. So go ahead, Brian.
I'm not. The point I didn't even say it yet. I said, don't take this the wrong way because you're my friend, but you don't know where the Torah came from, Ted.
I do.
That's You don't. You don't know.
I do.
You don't.
I do.
No,
you don't know.
Insert 25 more I don't, I do's. Go ahead, 10th.
Yes. When you look at textual criticism and you look at the people who know the languages, and when they go into all the ancient writings, they have to tie it to something. The times, the people there, King Nebuchadnezzar, Babylon, Sumerians, Chaldeans. There's a history that you can take the Bible. That's why I said earlier in the live show or pre-show, I can't remember, where the Smithsonian relies on the Bible for all of their archaeological digs and find it to be quite accurate. And so the whole point is that when we take the Old Testament, okay, that's before the New Testament was written, which is the story of Jesus and afterwards. So we have the Bible, which is 66 books, into one, which is the Old Testament and New Testament together, okay? They tell of this one story, of this one God and the whole plan. And there's no contradictions in the Bible between the Old and New because Christ is prophesied, and even kingdoms that ruled this earth were prophesied before they even were there. So there's a prophetic factor to the Bible. There's a geographical factor to the Bible. There's the times and the people and language. It all checks out. So I know that historically the book is accurate. Now, if someone says, well, fine, but don't attach supernatural to it, well, that's what they do. I do attach supernatural to it because how would you know prophecies without God telling you what's going to happen in the future?
Objection. There's two standards being applied to the word no here.
There's two words, Torah. There are two words then. Did you know that?
Your point?
Point is
Five
that
books of Moses.
Hold on, 10th.
Hang
Go,
on.
Brian.
What do those words mean?
I'm not Jewish. I know they represent the first 5 books.
I'm not going to keep on pushing this. My point is that you don't know what those two words mean.
I know they represent.
All right. I'm not trying to attack you. I'm just trying to point out something. That the origins, the oldest part of the Old Testament comes from somewhere else. And you have two words. What the term Torah is 2 words. So those words, To and Ra, the meanings of those words are important to knowing where that came from. That's all I'm going to say.
Are those Hebrew words, Brian? And can you please tell me what they mean?
I'm not going to go into what they mean.
Oh, go on.
It's not my place. No,
Why
it's not my place.
Why not? You brought it up.
It's not my place.
You brought it up.
I know that Ra is, put it this way, Ra is connected to Egypt. That has a direct connection to Egypt. That's all I'm going to say about Ra.
Yeah, so you're talking about the word Ra as the sun god of Egypt, right?
It's Thoth and Ra, isn't it? So, yeah, Thoth being Hermes Trismegistus. But it's the derivations from there, I would have thought, Brian.
Yeah, it's the derivations of the Hermegesis. What's your problem, Brian? Didn't you know that?
It really is. If you
cool,
look at the script, it's Proto-Hebrew. The Proto-Hebrew is Egyptian and Phoenician mix. So there's nothing wrong with that derivation coming from that. The trouble people have is they try to think of Jews back then as Jews are today. 2 very different things.
I mean, Moses was Egyptian.
Adam's right. Jews aren't what they used to be.
There was a positive claim made. Brian made a positive claim that it came from somewhere else. So he can give us the primary source evidence for that, and then we can all research.
No, I think I heard. Did you not hear him? He said it wasn't his place and stuff.
When you make a claim here, you back it, Brian. You know the rules.
No, there's an exception. Have you not forgotten the "it's not my place" exception to that? What's your problem?
That's not discussed.
Yeah, the problem is that's rule number 17.
Exactly.
The problem isn't.
I would like to look into it. So
the problem isn't what Brian said. The problem isn't what Brian said. The problem is what the other caller said. Saying that some guy went up in secret to the mountain. That is not even reciting the story properly.
Exactly.
So now he's got his decision based on someone making up a version that's not even in the Bible.
Okay. maybe we'll get into
primary
this.
source evidence for that as well.
Go on, John. You can have the last word.
I would like the
It's not
primary
the last word.
evidence. I would like the source evidence for that thing as well.
You want the primary source
Big
evidence
cat
for
now.
it, is what I heard in that. Is that what you said?
Yeah.
Indeed. Right. With that, I am going to say, after I've done a quick plug for my GoFundMe, a massive thank you to today's Discord and G+ panels. If you've not done so already, please share my GoFundMe campaign. So if you can't afford to actually contribute to it, that's perfectly understandable, but just smash the share button. So go and smash it on Facebook or smash it on Twitter. That would be greatly appreciated. If you have actually contributed by the time this goes up, then thank you very much indeed. I will do a proper shout out to all of the people as the days go by for this GoFundMe campaign. A link will be in the info box below. And with that, I'm going to say another massive, huge, enormous thank you to today's Discord and G+ panels for making today's after show possible. And of course, a massive thank you to all of you in either Nathan Oakley 1980 or Nathan Oakley premiering streams. Hope you're smashing the super chat, liking, commenting, sharing, subscribing, hitting my GoFundMe campaign, sharing that, and all that good stuff. I've been Nathan Oakley, and I will see you all in the next video.
Oh, what a day! What a lovely day!